Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто воде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Хотите жить – бегите. Хотите жить – сдавайтесь в плен. Россия не получит новую территорию Украины. Россия присоединит себя к той катастрофе, которую она принесла на оккупированную территорию нашей страны. Оккупант заполняет могилами захваченную территорию Украины. И все больше могил на территории самой России. Ценой того, что один человек в России хочет продолжать эту войну, кто хочет войны больше, чем жизнь. Ваши жизни, граждане России.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 602 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again on a very harrowing day.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news around the world with some very concerning news reaching us just over the past few hours. The Islamic Republic of Iran has officially attacked a U.S. military base, or more so a coalition base, inside of western Iraq just nearly 6 hours ago. The situation is incredibly serious. It appears that the United States is currently downplaying the situation, but with the constantly rising tensions in the Middle East, this appears to be another domino falling in the chain that may be leading to an inevitable regional war within the area. We're going to be covering all that news immediately here tonight, and unfortunately, we also will not be able to follow our usual rule on this channel of being able to cover this with picture and video evidence. More so, we only have large news articles to go off of that kind of give blanket statements about the attack that occurred at the Al-Assad airfield today within western Iraq. To give a little bit of information about the Al-Assad airfield is based, and let me make sure that I find it. Let me type in Al-Assad Air Base right here. And it's right there, actually, so I was right at it. It's very hard to see it in the middle of the desert. But this is the Al-Assad Air Base, which is largely a coalition air base used by the United States as well as several other countries within the area of Iraq to once again provide security and backup forces to the Iraqi government in case of emergency situations. With the constantly rising tensions in the Middle East, as well as statements being made by Iraq directly against the United States, we have now seen that over the past 6 hours, there were 3 drones that entered Iraqi airspace. 2 of them targeted the Al-Assad airbase, and from what we understand, the damage has been either minimal or the drones were intercepted. We've been hearing 2 separate stories. We've been hearing that American soldiers have been wounded at the airbase, and we have not gotten any confirmation of how many of them there were, where that hit was on the base, or if there are any American service members who have died at the moment, or any additional coalition members who have died at the moment. But we've also heard a second story that these drones were actually intercepted and stopped before they hit the airbase. These 2 stories can't coexist with each other. Either American soldiers have been injured and one of the drones did manage to hit the base and cause some kind of damage, or the drones were intercepted before they made it to the airbase and no American soldiers have been injured or killed. Regardless, the situation is an incredibly serious one, and we have 2 articles here to cover the story. We're not going to be going into them. This one is from the Associated Press, and this one's also from Reuters. We tried to find the most neutral news sources to get the background on this information today, and from what we understand, the information is very sparse. Currently, the U.S. Department of Defense, the one who has ended up breaking the story after this made it to the public, they have made an official statement saying that there are possibly American soldiers that have been injured at the Al-Assad airbase. This also appears to be dragging the United States more so into a direct conflict within the Middle East, as we also heard that another drone, a singular drone, was heading somewhere into the northern area of Iraq. We're assuming most likely towards the direction of Erbil or Mosul, and that drone, the information is incredibly sparse, if not non-existent on that one. We don't really know the fate of that drone, whether it ended up hitting its target or whether it was shot down. We just got to mention that there was a third single drone that was flying somewhere into the area of northern Iraq. At the moment, there are two carrier task forces based in the eastern Mediterranean right now. One of them is the USS Gerald R. Ford, the most advanced aircraft carrier in the entire U.S. Navy. The situation is incredibly tense right now. Honestly, the tension could be cut with a knife in between the Western world and the nations who support Iran and what they have been doing, including the Russians and the Chinese. We've also heard that the Russians have once again threatened the United States today, but we'll be getting into that here in a minute because that's largely associated with the Ukraine war and what's been going on up there. U.S. forces are currently on high alert from what we understand in the area. Of course, we have not seen any preemptive strikes or any preemptive measures being taken by U.S. forces in the region, but this attack is a serious escalation, and we'll be waiting to see, here within the next few hours or the next coming days, what will be happening as a direct response to the Iranian attack against the Al-Assad air base inside of Iraq. Moving on from that news, and we hope and wish the best for the American forces inside of the Al-Assad air base, as well as all of the coalition forces as well. We're hoping that they're all safe, that none of them were injured, and if some of them were injured, that the injuries are minor. But moving on from that news inside of Iraq, we have seen that there may have been a somewhat indirect response to that attack today, as the President of the United States has given a green light to Israel to start a ground invasion of the Gaza Strip and inevitably wipe out the Hamas leadership within the Gaza Strip. According to a snippet of The Times, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, has won private backing from the President of the United States to press ahead with a ground invasion of the Gaza Strip, according to accounts of closed-doors meetings between the two leaders. On a visit to Israel, the president told Netanyahu he remained fully in support of Israel's plans to launch an incursion in order to eradicate Hamas, despite continuing outrage at Tuesday night's explosion at a hospital in Gaza, which killed hundreds of civilians. At the moment, that explosion is still shrouded in controversy and a lot of rumors. Nobody really knows why the hospital blew up, and there seems to be as equal credit, or even more so at this point from more information and evidence that came out today, that it may have been a faulty Hamas rocket that ended up blowing up on the hospital, and from what we can understand, it was one of Hamas's larger rockets that were being fired, more so than an Israeli Air Force airstrike. Both sides are currently blaming each other. There is still no clear answer as to who blew up the hospital, but it could equally be that it was a failed Hamas rocket launch. But nevertheless, we have seen that the Israeli Air Force, while preparing for the ground invasion still and being given the green light by the President of the United States, we can see that the Israeli Air Force is continuing to carpet bomb the Strip in hopes of destroying Hamas outposts within the northern area. We see the Israeli airstrikes coming in. And we can see continued airstrikes on the area. The Israelis trying to use precision-guided strikes to knock out the strongholds of Hamas in the northern Gaza Strip.
Man, for precision strikes, those are some pretty large munitions.
I mean, dude, the Israelis sit there and they go, oh yeah, let's do a precision strike. And then they use like a blockbuster 5,000-pound bomb for the precision strike.
Yeah.
It's completely like opposite of what you would think it would be. And they're hammering this particular spot of the city incredibly hard, maybe suggesting that there is some kind of a leader in the area, or it's a confirmed stronghold. We see more explosions from the Israeli Air Force further on in the background. And the video clip ends right there. But of course, showing us what's been going on in the northern part of the Gaza Strip inside of Gaza City for the past day. That's really the only clip we got of any note from the area. Beyond that, of course, things are going on as usual. The Iron Dome system is continuing to shoot down incoming Hamas rockets that have been fired from the northern Gaza Strip. From what we understand, we have not been able to see that the Hamases stop their rocket barrages. In fact, they continue on like they have been for the past few weeks. Actually the past week and a half or so. We also have seen that in the northern area of the Israeli border, that Hezbollah has continued to be a part of the active fighting and has continued to attack Israeli outposts in the area of Kiryat Shimona, or Menara, as we've seen. And we saw a clip once again come out from Hezbollah's official channel today, showing them attacking Israeli defense forces along the southern Lebanese border. These attacks are something, because we actually heard at the beginning of this entire engagement that Iran supposedly made an official announcement to Hezbollah for them to not attack Israel, but it appears that was only on the surface, as we're seeing that Hezbollah is continuing to attack Israeli defense forces within the northern border area, or the southern border area of Lebanon, and it appears that they are inflicting casualties onto the IDF. We can see here Hezbollah actually giving a layout of the land, like it's some kind of a special ops mission in a movie. And we can see them showing the IDF outpost right there along the border. And that red circle right there is actually highlighting an IDF soldier that's walking around outside of the FOB. And in a moment, Hezbollah is going to fire an anti-tank guided missile at the outpost, hoping to take out the Israeli soldier. We see the ATGM hit, a very unfortunate hit, and of course causing casualties once again for the Israeli Defense Forces. That was, however,
a pretty big munition themselves that they've got there.
That was a pretty big one. We don't know what kind of ATGM that was either, but we did see a little bit of a silver lining to this. The Israeli Air Force then watched a Hezbollah anti-tank guided missile launcher in action and ended up blowing the thing away on film. We don't know if this was the same one that just conducted that attack, but we did get to see that an ATGM was knocked out. We can see the ATGM fire right there. You can see the muzzle flash, and I'll show you that right there. And we can see the crew moving around. And we can see the ATGM firing again. And we can see that they're following the crew, which is moving away, and they hit him dead on. That's the end of that clip. We once again don't know if that is the exact same ATGM that was used to attack the Israeli border outpost in the last clip. But what we did see is that an ATGM was knocked out. Hopefully that's the same one that we just saw attack the IDF outpost, because that would only be sweet vengeance for what just happened, but we can't really confirm that at the moment, because we haven't been able to geolocate these clips incredibly well. These are largely just within the northern border area of Israel. Moving on from the news in Israel and on into the broader Middle Eastern situation right now, things are becoming incredibly tense. Iran is largely backed by the Russians, at least in spirit. We haven't seen the Russians officially get pulled in on Iran's side at the moment. Of course, they do support the Bashar al-Assad regime within Syria, and Israel has already conducted strikes against the Bashar al-Assad regime at the Damascus and Aleppo airfields around a week ago, knocking both airfields out from what we understand. We've also seen that the Iranians are continuing to ramp up their rhetoric and attacks, not just on Israel through Hamas and Hezbollah, but also directly onto U.S. and coalition air bases within the nation of Iraq. Considering all of these things, I would have to be honest with you all, the outlook is incredibly grave at the moment inside the Middle East, not for the United States' well-being or strategic interests, but it is grave in terms of the possibility of an oncoming war happening. At this point, we would have to tell y'all, in all honesty, it may be entirely possible that a war is going to be breaking out very soon in the Middle East that may be a major regional war, encompassing the nations of Israel, Syria, Iran, and maybe Iraq as well. Iraq will most likely join the coalition forces that would be supporting the Israelis. Kind of an odd turn of fate, but that's also why they have coalition air bases like the Al-Assad air base inside of Iraq right now. This could become a very serious ordeal, and from what we can understand, the United States is actually going to be giving a statement tomorrow. I believe the president will be giving a statement on the ongoing rising tensions in the Middle East and what the American response will be on paper. We'll have to see if that's followed through as well, but an incredibly tense situation is starting to develop in the Middle East, and this may be one that actually impacts most of y'all, our viewers, more directly than the war in Ukraine has even affected us, and that's been a serious war with major repercussions, especially for a large number of our European viewers. And speaking of Europe and what's been going on in Ukraine, the situation has also been incredibly tense here as well. And Russia has issued a very plain Jane, well, it's kind of a normal threat that they have given, just to put that out there. But it's once again a threat that we've seen before. And it's something that we're quite accustomed to. Many of y'all will know that the airfield inside of Berdyansk was attacked the other day, and it appears that the damage was incredibly significant, even according to pro-Russian sources that usually try and mitigate the amount of losses or the severity of the losses that they have achieved or sustained. The Berdyansk airport was the target of attack by 3 ATACMS missiles just the other day, and from what we could see on video and picture evidence from yesterday, the damage here was incredibly serious and quite significant. We were actually able to get some satellite pictures of the aftermath of the airfield today, and it was incredibly dire and quite severe for the Russians. We can see the outlines of multiple helicopters that have been burned out where they were sitting on the tarmac, and from this count alone, there appears to have been 8 entire helicopters that were destroyed in that one ATACMS missile attack. This is the largest loss of Russian helicopters that we've seen in a single attack in the war. This even beats out the time that the Kherson International Airport had been attacked by Ukrainian forces last year around November or October, and I'll be showing y'all that airport right here. Many of y'all remember this one. And even those attacks on a single day had not reached the amount of losses that we saw on a single day inside of Berdyansk from the ATACMS. The ATACMS really are starting to prove their worth, especially from the satellite pictures that we got today that are clearly showing the charred remains of 8 separate helicopters. You can see them right there again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and maybe even a 9th one right there. But once again, can't really tell on that one. That one might be a little iffy. But an entire 8 destroyed, an incredibly large number, considering that the Russians only have around 350 operational helicopters as of this point in the war from our actual estimates. Going off of this, we may assume that the Russian helicopter forces in this area have been crippled due to these losses, and they will most likely be drawing back their operations for a while to restructure their forces, reorganize them, and then they may be dedicated back to frontline action in about a week and a half or 2 weeks at this point. But an incredibly serious blow, and it appears that the Ukrainians have begun to realize the incredible efficiency, and not only that, the incredible successes that the ATACMS missiles have brought the Ukrainian forces just over the past 24 hours. And it appears that they are starting to launch even more of them. And we can see right here in this clip that it appears that 6 ATACMS missiles were being fired all at one time. Here's the clip. This happened just about 2 hours ago. We haven't heard any news of these ATACMS making landfall anywhere, but we did see their launch. And there goes 1. And there goes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6.
Man, they're putting those to good use already. That's crazy.
Man, they started pumping these things out. Like, once they saw that they were effective at Berdyansk, they were like, fire them all. They're just like, we can win the war right now. Just start firing every single one of them.
The Ukrainians are truly like a kid when they get some like new candy or something. They eat it all at once. They like fire every weapon they get immediately. Like use it all like full out.
Dude, when the level 20 player gets the level 100 equipment, just use it all. Like that's like the Ukrainian mindset. It's like use everything. And we haven't seen, once again, those make landfall yet. We have a feeling that they're being fired once again into the area, probably in between Melitopol and Mariupol at a target in that area. But once again, we can't really confirm that for certain right now. We really have no idea. It could be going anywhere for what we know. And also, once again, to reiterate this, from what we understand, the latest ATACMS variants, which have a range of about 150 miles, would almost be within range of the Kerch Bridge. So if they get the unitary warheads, which from what we understand as of the last attack they don't have, they may actually try, if the front line moves a little bit more, to start striking directly at the Kerch Bridge and actually try and knock it out for an incredibly long period. But moving on from that, I have to move y'all into Russia because Russia has been livid about the use of the ATACMS missiles over just the past day. The Russians have come out today and made an official statement saying that the U.S. is moving into being directly involved in this conventional war because of their provision of the ATACMS missiles. I can't wait to see what they're going to be thinking about the F-16s when those arrive. And we've also seen our favorite, the devil, Volodymyr Solovyov, showing up to once again threaten a nuclear hellfire and fury onto the United States for providing the ATACMS. So I'm going to be moving y'all into this clip. It's an interesting one, and I'm sure y'all will enjoy it. I know that many of y'all love this segment. We rarely get to do it anymore, but here we go. And also, let me turn it down a little bit so I can read those subtitles. Yes.
He always acts like he's just like exasperated to the extreme.
Yeah, he always acts like he's just moments away from pulling out the Nagant revolver and going, "Today's the day." Oh, man. Meanwhile, Americans secretly delivered ATACMS. We will learn how to deal with them. We will shoot them down. Like everything else. It's really about something else. Eats his finger. Damn, he's chewing on it. Look at that. He's getting a full four-course meal off that thumb. He's in there. He went, "We will shoot them down." It's like, damn, calm down, dude. It's about something else entirely. It's about Americans believing they can do anything. And we can. Because guess what? You didn't put people on the moon. We did. Kiss my ass. Anyways, here's what I want to say. They delivered ATACMS. We should deliver everything America's enemies need. To all of them, any weapons that they need. Where are they going to be getting those from? To make sure there is not one spot on this earth where soil doesn't burn under the feet of these neo-colonialist critters. You want to kill Russian people. You are delivering weapons. You're hoping to get away with this. Supply any weapons. North Korea. Well, wait a minute, hang on. That statement doesn't really make any sense, because I thought the Russians were in such bad straits for weapons that they actually had to start getting weapons from the North Koreans, and now they're saying they're going to give weapons to the North Koreans. That's the opposite, though. Y'all are so, like, the Russians are so depleted of weaponry, the North Koreans, oddly enough, are the ones providing them with weapons. So how in the world is Russia going to give North Korea weapons when they're buying them from... That doesn't even make any sense. And Syria, like... from what I understand, they've been giving weapons to the Syrians for 10 years at this point, and it hasn't really done anything. Hell, the Chernivogna Wagner actually went up directly against the U.S. Army, and we wiped the floor against them inside of Syria. So, I don't know. I mean, apparently them giving weapons to the pro-Russian critters hasn't really been doing them much good, because we've been blasting them like varmints. But anyways, or anyone else needs. Anyone who is our ally, or a situational ally in this war. Give them everything. So that not one American soldier on foreign territory, as an occupant, the way they are in Syria, or threatening their territory, like North Korea, they should not feel safe. I'll promise you this. They do feel safe, because the Sea Rams do the work. But anyways, you want to kill Russians? You think you can get away with it? Yeah. Don't hope for that, critters. Why don't dude? He's throwing that out like it's a slur or something. He's like, "You damn critters!" It's like,
yeah, really. Where did he even learn that word from?
Yeah, I don't know what's up with him using that word. That's a new one in the devil's vocabulary, is critters, because he's never said this before until today. He was watching some show with his kid last night, Matthew, and they said critters in the show. He said, "I think that's going to be a new word of mine." And so he just started throwing it out on the show every other sentence. Do not hope for that. Long pause, deep breath. Looking through his iPad.
This dude is definitely drunk. Like he's like a drunk, like coming on here doing a rant like usual. He's not even like coherent. He's just sitting here like huffing and stuff, and not even saying anything important either.
No, he's not. And also, he's so damn boring. Like, I can't get through that. Like, I don't even know how people watch this guy's show, because he takes so long in between statement to statement. He completely loses you by the time he even gets to the next sentence. And also, what the hell are these statues? This looks like a statue of a tortured person, and then a golden microphone. Man.
You know, it is Russia after all.
Man,
that's them strangling the journalist yesterday.
Dude, that's a reminder of what he did to that one guy who wrote the script wrong. That's what he looked like by the end of it. That actually is the guy. He's like, he was dropped in gold and turned into a piece of gold. But anyways, a black flag was raised above the Razavi Khorasan shrine in Iran. This is a call for war or revenge. Do you even understand what will happen? Yeah, if a global jihad will start. Now, let me say this really quickly. This guy's acting like global jihads are even a thing anymore. Global jihads in the modern world is one terrorist attack that ends up causing some damage, and then we come down on the Middle East like no tomorrow, and then nothing really happens outside of the Middle East in large form for about the next 20, 30 years or so. So it's like, no, I don't think anyone should really be scared of that, because if anything even close to that happened, we're already in the Middle East before those guys can get back on a plane and try and go back to wherever they came from. And I'm sure, by the way, y'all, Solovev has claimed throughout this war to be a Jew, a Christian, and a Muslim. So let's take a guess. What religion is he going to be aligning himself with today? I bet you he's a Muslim today. So we'll wait and see.
I bet so. Man, Iran better hope that they have some nukes, because if something does break out, Iran is going to be in some deep trouble. They can raise these black flags all day long. It doesn't mean anything. Like, this guy, I don't even know what this guy's talking about. What is Iran going to do? Like, is he suggesting they have nukes?
No, I think he's suggesting that the Muslims of the world, just every single one of them, for some reason, like none of them can disagree, are all going to stand up and go join hand in hand against a war to kill everyone that isn't pro-Russian or something like that. That
ain't going to happen. They've already tried that twice, and nothing happened in the U.S. So it's happened in Europe, I think, one or two incidences, but not everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not really getting this much, but let's see where he goes, because now he's saying when hundreds of millions of Muslims all over the world, I'm sure he's going to throw himself into that batch here in a minute. So let's just see. We'll say this cursed society of evil spirits who burn the Quran and to kill Muslim women and kids. Where the hell is he going? Like we do that in America, the country that prides itself on religious freedoms more than any other country. And apparently we're burning Qurans in America. And that's interesting. Very, very interesting as a premise. That's actually stupid, because what's interesting is that the Russians are actually the ones who get a little bit closer to doing that. They'll actually take, and I've seen a video of this, so don't even ask me where I saw it, but I saw it. They will take Muslim kids in predominantly Muslim regions like the Caucasus Mountain region. They'll take them into the school's auditorium, and they'll have a stripper get up on stage and strip in front of the kids, because of course that's against Muslim religion and doctrine and stuff, to try and break down their cultural barriers. That's actually something that's something I've actually seen on film. And the kids are like trying to cover their eyes and they're looking away and stuff. And these kids are like 8 to 10 years old. And the teachers are saying, they're telling the kids, look up at the stage, and then they pan up the camera, and there's a whole stripper up there with a stripper pole and everything, doing their routine, and in front of kids. Like, it's absolutely insane to see that. Trying to degrade and tear down someone's cultural ideals and their customs to try and make them more aligned with normal Russians, and then they sit there and say stuff like this and act like the West is a bad place, when, hell, you can't really condemn a religion in the West, because most countries like the United States have specific amendments and provisions that allow for the practice of really any religion, any way you want. Even to the point that some people will start raising eyebrows. It's still allowed. But that's something that's absolutely ridiculous for him to say, especially considering what the Russians do to the Muslims that live within their borders. Do you understand what will happen to these godless liberals all over the world? I'm just reading what he's saying, y'all. From Sweden to Washington. From Quebec to Brussels. Apparently everything else in the United States off the East Coast is saved. So apparently we're fine, Matthew, here in Alabama. Apparently.
Oh yeah, he left Alabama off because he knows not to screw with them.
Yeah, apparently so. Do you
He
even
learned his lesson while he was here.
do you even understand the horror that can start on planet Earth if a religious war was to start? Is anyone able to grasp it? I will repeat once again. I don't know who struck the hospital, but I know who canceled mercy and justice. What stupid.
That's like a Netflix subscription. I canceled my Mercy and Justice subscription yesterday.
That's like Law and Order and Crime and Punishment. It's like, what a stupid state. All these... Oh, look, he's throwing out critters again like it's a slur. Here it comes again, Matthew. All these NATO critters and their allies. What the hell's up with this word? I mean, he's using it a lot tonight. Visit Telegram channel, Sololoviv. And now, the weather.
Dude,
Damn,
just
he
on
just
here
went-
plugging his Telegram channel for real.
Yeah, apparently he is. He's like, hey, join my Discord, by the way. And then after he goes on his speech of, there will be a religious war. Everyone is going to die on Earth. And now the weather. It's like, well, you can't do that. So you gotta move on to something else that makes more sense. But anyways, we're gonna be moving on from that. I can't show y'all more brain rot. That was exactly 4 minutes and 20 seconds of it. I think that's about enough that I can take. Maybe enough that y'all can take. Can't show y'all any more of that. If you want to see the rest of it, y'all can go into the link in the description below. We have the day 602 map down there. You can click on it. You can enjoy it all day and all night. The whole thing. But moving on from that, and down towards Ingalls Air Base near Saratov, and I'll be moving that exactly where the air base is, we got to see a close-up of one of the painted planes, which confirms the planes are painted on. That is supposed
Look at that.
That's supposed to be, I think,
funny.
like an Antonov 22 or something like that. Maybe an Aleutian, but it's painted on just to try and throw off Ukrainian surveillance and Western satellites. It's not really going to work too well, especially considering that the Russians are showing the buckets of paint that are out while they're painting these things onto the tarmac. But there you have it. The painted planes are actually a real thing. Moving on from that, and out of the Ingalls Air Base, we're also going to be moving on into the area of Kursk, because we saw that while Iran has been trying to attack U.S. and coalition bases today in Iraq, the Ukrainians have actually been striking Russian bases within Russia, hitting one of the military bases that the Russians have within Kursk. According to the caption, there are 3,000 Russian soldiers based at this FOB, or more so this camp. That means that it's about a brigade's strength at this one camp, with 80 pieces of military equipment. And so here's the clip of the explosions, and also the anti-aircraft fire. But you see the explosion right there. It appears the anti-aircraft fire was wildly unsuccessful. When you see another explosion on the base again, and another one, it appears they're not succeeding at all in shooting any of these things down. And another one, that's about the fourth one so far, and a fifth one. Damn, these people just got smacked. I mean, 5 times, 6 times, 7. Anti-aircraft fire is going strong again. 8. 9. So, through all that anti-aircraft fire, and an entire brigade being at that base, the Ukrainians were able to hit it with 9 separate drones. Pretty impressive, if you ask me. I would have been very surprised even to see 1 bomb hit, much less 9. They practically carpet bombed that base as far as the suicide drones went. So, pretty impressive, and I have to say, that is showing that the Russian air defenses around that brigade's base is apparently non-existent. And it looked mostly like it was small arms or something similar that was trying to fire up and stop that, stop the massive drones from hitting the base, and none of it was successful. We did not see a single drone get blown up in the sky. But moving on from Russia, we are now going to be moving on. Let me make sure we have no more international news, and we don't. We're now going to be moving on into Ukraine itself, and specifically the location unknowns. And we actually have some pretty decent ones tonight. Starting off with our first one, this is actually a video that was put out just today by United 24 about Ukraine's snipers, and one of their top snipers, if this video even loads. And we're waiting, and there we go. And so, Without further ado, here is the clip brought to y'all by United 24.
What does the work of the world's top military professionals look like from behind the scenes? He's a sniper by profession. His call sign is Taras. He's been at war for years already. The Special Operations Forces call him one of the best snipers in Ukraine, and thus in the world.
In Bakhmut, my comrade was wounded by a Russian. I tracked him down and hit him just when he was shooting with an RPG. Then I went to my wounded friend, showed him the video and said, "He's done. I took revenge for you." The primary rifle in my group is Barrett Amrad. We also have Italian Victrixes, Canadian Cadixes, and
Not gonna lie, that's actually pretty solid right there. We're starting off well.
English Accuracy Internationals. In my opinion, the best rifles for the military are Barrett and Accuracy International. They say that there is beauty in simplicity, and the Barrett Amrad rifle embodies simplicity. It is rugged, durable, waterproof, and multi-caliber. It takes only 3 minutes to unscrew 2 bolts and set up another barrel, and even the aim point remains the same. The UR-10 is a very high-quality Ukrainian rifle that we've been using since 2016. I like this weapon, and it's a great choice for urban warfare. In Hostomel, we set up an ambush, and one of our team members had a UR-10.
I think we might have seen this video before, by the way.
And really quickly to clarify that, I made sure today, because I was like, haven't we seen this before? This video is a continuation that actually came out 8 hours ago. So this is a brand new video. It's very similar to one we've seen before about Ukraine snipers, but this video is looking at Ukraine snipers from a slightly different perspective, more so focusing on their weapons than the story of the sniper. So it's kind of a similar video, but a different take on the snipers.
We managed to take 3 shots, he made 10. The distance was short, allowing him to shoot, reload, and shoot again efficiently and quickly. It's a great modern weapon. Sometimes we
Man, they got a case for that thing on the front line.
The enemy's positions to the point where they were afraid to go there. We heard an intercept. Keep your heads down, there's a sniper. Our presence has a psychological effect on both the enemy and our infantry. We've had cases when we arrived at a position where an enemy sniper had killed one of our soldiers. The guys were really depressed and angry, hardly talking. But when we arrived, shot the orcs, and showed them that someone could stand up for the infantry, the soldiers were immediately uplifted morale-wise.
Snipers are the elite of any army. Becoming a professional sniper requires years of training and tens of thousands of dollars.
This is the gear I use on my missions. Body armor with...
Oh, okay. This is a re-upload. Because I was sitting here thinking, I was like, they haven't gone over the price points. No, they're going over them right now. So this is apparently a re-upload from United 24, but I was fooled. It looked fairly new to me at the start. So we're going to be moving on from that little bit of location unknown news and on into the next one where we got to see something that is new. I know this has got to be new. It's Abrams in Ukraine. Check it out. And we're going to be muting that, but we can also see that they made a sick Abrams patch for their Abrams tankers that are going to be operating these on the front lines. And as he lowers it down, the camera focuses on their brand new M1A1 Abrams. Look at that. That's very nice. Very nice.
Would you look at that? They look a little worn, but they're in good shape.
A little worn. It's still better than what the Russians have.
Oh, hell yeah. He said, yeah.
He's like, yes, sir. 100, 100, laughing face, smiling face. And man, look at that. They're already in training out there in Ukraine. This is actually the first footage we've seen of it. And that's the end of that clip right there, but great to see the Abrams are in Ukraine, and it does appear that they're going through the normal shakedown trials that every other Western main battle tank has gone through once they've made it there, and they're just getting ready for frontline service. Moving on from that into the next one, we also got to see a little bit of an oopsies today, as a Ukrainian soldier had a failed RPG launch, which was caught on film.
Oh.
And that man was gone. Dude,
the cameraman was okay, though, because he was filming, so he'd been fine, but the 2 guys shooting it, they'd have been in trouble.
Man, dude, this guy, the cameraman, he didn't even really wait to see what was going to happen. He turned around and ran away immediately. Watch. Dude, he was running before the camera had even turned around. He was already gone. But His reflexes are well worth it, because watching an RPG-7 just fall right out of the tube and right onto the ground in front of it, it's probably the worst thing you could see at that moment. Let's watch that again. Dude, I just love the sound. It makes it sound like a fork being picked up off of a table. You just hear... Oh man, well luckily everyone was okay. So something we can laugh at. And A, to see the faulty ammo, but still it's a funny clip that we can all get a little moment's laughter out of, and hopefully they get to laugh about it too. But moving on from that, and into our next little clip, we also got to see the Ukrainians hitting a Russian D-20. We can see that they have the military-grade computer. And we also got the drone hooked up to it. Actually, no, sorry, correction. They have one drone that's found the target. That's apparently their recon drone. And then they have the kamikaze drone coming in on this camera right here. We see it going in. And on that one, we got to see that they hit it. And they got a good laugh out of it. And look at that. Oh, that was a really good hit, actually. Hit right onto the breach. It looks like those Russians got hit by those critters. But still, great to see that they were able to knock out a D-20. And, of course, another Russian artillery piece that will be sorely missed by the artillerists that operated it. And moving on into the casualty report for the day, we are starting to see a marked decrease in Russian casualties, showing that the Avdiivka offensive is starting to come to a slow. No Bobcat skid steers were destroyed.
No Bobcats, man. Absolutely none. But they did get a cruise missile, a plane, and 6 helicopters. That made up for it.
That is right. That is right, Blade. They got a decent amount of crap today. 620 Russian troops obliterated. Man. I guess those guys are some crispy critters, you know what I mean? But anyways, we also get to see that 15 armored personnel carriers were destroyed, along with 10 supply trucks, 2 tanks, 8 artillery pieces, 10 drones, 1 plane, 6 helicopters, those of course were at Berdyansk, and 1 cruise missile. We still haven't seen them account for the other 2 helicopters that were destroyed there, but I have a feeling they'll probably be adding those on in the coming days, maybe tomorrow. But, still, very nice to see the high losses that the Russians are still taking, not as high as the past week's daily losses have been, but nonetheless, they are still good losses. And also, this is indicating that the Russian offensive at Avdiivka is finally coming to a stop, and probably for good. They'll most likely be moving on into what the British Ministry of Defense is going to call an active defense. What I'm calling it is a failed offensive and a Ukrainian defensive victory. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from the casualty report and on down into the front lines, because we have a lot of news to cover from every single part of the front lines, all the way from the northeast down to Kherson. We actually got a clip from Odessa today as well, showing their air defense in action, trying to shoot down some drones. Of course, many of y'all have been talking in the live chat. This has probably been one of the most active live chats we've seen for a while. And Matthew, what have people been talking about?
All right, so let's see what the critters have been saying today. And our first poll says, today, Iran sent kamikaze drones to attack a U.S. military base in the Middle East. And what are your thoughts? 63% said our response should be severe. 27% said I need more info first. 5% said unsure. And another 5% said we should let this one go. And this is probably the most severe story of the day, in my opinion. Attacking a U.S. military base, even though the attack was unsuccessful, the kamikaze drones were shot down before they hit the base. I think this is a very big deal, and to simply turn a blind eye to it would be a little bit irresponsible, in my opinion, because we shouldn't allow people to attack our bases without some type of severe response, because a good portion of our defense is based on deterrence. And if we aren't deterring the enemy, then we're already failing in our defense. So I think the response should be very severe. And I wouldn't rule out actually attacking Iran if we knew that they didn't have nukes. But if they have nukes, that would make things a whole lot different. And that's the question we really need answered right now. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that there should be a response to what's happened at the Al-Assad Air Base over the past few hours. It's been a very serious event. And I've actually seen someone say that we should let it go, that because no Americans died. And yeah, we could always look at it with that kind of mindset, but then what is America? Like, what do we actually defend? Because if they can attack us all we want, as long as no one gets killed and we don't do anything, they're going to start attacking everything that they can, as long as they're not killing an American. They're going to start seizing cargo ships, oil freighters at will. As long as no one gets killed, they'll be able to get away with it if we go with that kind of mindset. And that's something I think we should not allow, especially for the Iranians to conduct a attack on a U.S. base, regardless whether it succeeded or not. That is a serious ordeal. That would be like saying the Russians could launch a nuclear attack against the United States, and as long as we shoot down all of the missiles and they don't actually kill us, we shouldn't respond. I believe that we should respond to any kind of an attempted attack, whether it be successful or unsuccessful, in killing Americans, because it is about sending a message. It's not about vengeance. It's not anything about that. This is more so the business side of things. We can't have the message spread around the world that you can end up trying to attack the United States, and as long as the United States does their job and thwarts your attack, you will be in the clear. You'll be fine. As long as you don't end up wounding or killing any Americans and they're able to defend themselves against your unwarranted attack, hey, we're all good. They'll never attack us back because no one died. I don't think that's a good precedent to lay out, in my opinion. And I think that there should be some kind of a response to what Iran has done. I believe we should start off with surgical strikes into Iran with the Air Force, on specific targets, or maybe go for terrorist leaders of Hexbollah and Hamas first, and then if the Iranians continue to try and ramp up the heat, then we start conducting surgical airstrikes on military targets within Iran. Because I do not think that this can be let go. This is something that we can't let we can't let go by. We can't have it forgiven. This is an attack directly on the United States. Whether it's succeeded or not, it's a serious concern. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And everyone can, of course, agree, disagree. That's what the point of the poll is. It has every single option on it, so that way you can come up with what you think and say what you want. But with that, we're going to be moving on to the next one.
And also, one more thing I want to add. Not only would responding very severely to Iran's attack on a U.S. military base be for deterrence, but also, in my opinion, when you have countries continuously attacking us, even if they're smaller attacks and are not really major, I think that creates such chaos in the world that happening repeatedly over and over and over has almost the same effect over time as a major attack. Because just the instability it causes within every single region where these people operate, these terrorists, it's going to cause the entire world to destabilize, and it's going to cause other countries like China to feel emboldened to go do stuff around the world also to other countries like Taiwan. So, to me, I think that just to have peace, sometimes a strong response is necessary to avoid a larger situation breaking out.
I would agree on that as well. And also, see a lot of interesting points being brought up. Some people are saying that that's not a good idea to try and respond to that attack. Why wouldn't it be? Historically, we have responded to things like that before. In fact, the entire reason we entered the Vietnam War with actual combatants instead of just advisors is because of a fictitious scenario we made up in the Gulf of Tonkin. No U.S. ships were even under attack, but just the suggestion that there was an attempted attack on the U.S. Navy was enough to get us directly involved in Vietnam. And if that was justification enough back then, and at the time, not knowing that the attack was mostly fictitious, it was a fairly reasonable response. Why wouldn't it be a fairly reasonable response today, especially considering that Iran is currently supporting terrorist groups that are fighting against one of our allies, Israel, and we are currently heavily involved in that situation. We're just waiting for the request to come in for us to get directly involved. Why in the world would we not respond to an attack by a country that is clearly a belligerent against the United States in every single way but officially? That's something that I think certainly needs to be looked into, and we need to make sure we're ready to respond to that. And I see a lot of people saying we can't spread ourselves thin. I don't really think this will be spreading ourselves too thin, as long as we handle this correctly. I believe the Navy and the Air Force can most likely handle this situation with some small involvement from the Army, and we could largely keep it on a smaller level, at least in terms of the manpower dedicated to the situation. That, of course, would leave multiple carrier groups available for East Asia, and it would also allow a large part of the Army and the Marines to also be involved in that area if anything was to happen. But that's just my opinion, and y'all can agree or disagree with it. Once again, it's a poll, and y'all can have any ideas y'all want. But with that, we are moving on into the next one.
All right, and our next poll says the U.S. is sending the command and control ship USS Mount Whitney to Israel in the Mediterranean, and what is actually happening? 58% said it's a U.S. show of force. 18% said it seems major, but I need more info. 15% said it's a cover for actual mobilization, and 9% said unsure. And at this point, I would say that me, being a non-military person, common sense would tell me at the moment, considering how bad these tensions are getting, that we should probably go ahead and start putting assets in place to get ready for a war. And I think this is what this is. Sending this command and control vessel there, along with the other aircraft carriers that are already there, also indicates to me that we're preparing to actually go to war. Not offensively, most likely defensively, although it's not out of the picture, we could be offensive. But I would say that this indicates something major is going on behind the scenes, and I wouldn't put it past the United States to actually be putting something into place like that. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that this is actually a serious escalation. Doing some quick reading and research on the Blue Ridge class ships, which this is one of them, it appears that their entire purpose is to be a flagship of a fleet. There's only 2 of these in the U.S. Navy, and they're also largely specially made to provide command for amphibious landing operations. That's almost their entire role. So that way they can, of course, command multiple fleets, if need be, on how to conduct that amphibious landing from a centralized area and a ship that was purpose-made for largely office work, the high-end side of things, the actual big picture stuff that would get this rolling. Going off of that, this may be showing that while the United States is largely publicly downplaying the situation, it is becoming incredibly serious in the background, because the fact that we're sending one of the only 2 ships we have that are purpose-built for command, and also purpose-built, from what we understand, for commanding amphibious landing operations on a very large scale, this is something that is indicating there's a little bit more going on behind the scenes. And so, with that, I hope that addresses that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And of course, I have to make a little bit of disclaimer here. That is based on very quick research. I just pulled that up really quickly to try and figure out what this ship is really used for, and it appears that the major answer is commanding multiple fleets and amphibious landing operations. So it appears to be going into the area because we may have a prolonged presence there, and that's really the only reason that thing would go over there. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and we are fresh out of poll questions, but there are many more coming up soon, so get ready for those. And in the meantime, we're moving on to our Super Chat questions. And up first, we have a very generous $100 donation from Mark, the minimally competent drone operator. Hey! And thank you very much, Mark, for that very generous support. And he says, the hospital was not hit. Footage shows one Hamas rocket of a barrage fail into the car park. The crater was 2 feet wide, 6 inches deep, and 2 cars were destroyed. A number of others showed modest damage, and even the hospital windows were intact, says Mark, the incompetent OSINT operator. And Mark, you are correct. From my research, you are definitely correct. The hospital was not hit directly, from what I could tell. And also, the missile was not from Israel. It was a Palestinian jihad missile. So, a complete false story that was being perpetrated by many large news outlets that Israel had launched that rocket and tried to hit the hospital. And I think some of them even said that they hit the hospital. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say thank you so much, first off, for the massive support, Mark, and helping the channel to keep on rolling. It is folks like you who throw in continued support that help this channel to make this news possible. We run ad-free and sponsor-free, and the only way that we're able to make a living and do this as a job is through y'all support. And so I gotta thank you so much for that, first off. And second off, from what I understand, you are largely correct on that. Almost entirely correct on that. We saw that the damage was actually quite minimal, although the Palestinian authorities and Hamas claimed there were hundreds dead inside of the hospital. We haven't actually gotten any proof of that. So from what we understand, that largely is the story. Of course, I'm trying to stay as unbiased on that as possible, even to the point of not making a call. But to me, it clearly was a failed Palestinian rocket at this point. The video evidence suggests that. The evidence from the ground suggests that. But once again, you know, we want to try and stay as neutral on that situation as possible. But, you know, of course, being honest with y'all and just letting y'all know what I think behind the scenes, that was clearly a failed Palestinian rocket that ended up, by coincidence, landing within the area of the hospital, and it ended up, from what we know, not really killing or injuring anyone, and those numbers seem to be massively inflated, because I've never even seen any picture or video evidence showing the amount of dead that they're claiming came from that hospital. And there's, in the modern world, there is always, especially in situations like that, loads of pictures that would be coming out of all of the citizens who would have been massacred. We haven't seen that at all over the past 24 hours. So I would completely agree with you, Mark. From what we understand, it was a failed Palestinian rocket, and the blame doesn't really fall, well, if it was to fall on anyone, it would fall on Hamas. But beyond that, it's not really going to fall on anyone because it wasn't a deliberate attack on the hospital, and also Israel did not conduct the attack. So with that, I thank you so much once again for the massive amount of support, Mark, the largest super chat of the night so far, and helping this channel to keep on rolling, because y'all's continued support is the only thing that helps this channel to keep on running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Scott the Tall Guy, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Scott, for that support, and we do appreciate it very much. And thanks for helping to keep us running. He says, I've had this on my mind for a while. Is it plausible that Russia has some type of involvement in Hamas attacking Israel in an effort to get the U.S. involved and limit our support and aid to Ukraine? And keep up the good work.
And thank you so much once again for the support, Scott the Tall Guy. You are a channel legend. You've been around for an incredibly long time, and I gotta thank you for being here tonight and also supporting the channel. And to answer that question, from what we understand, the Russians are possibly involved, but in a very removed way. They're not directly talking or working with Hamas, from what we understand. It's probably more the case that the Russians are influencing the Iranians to then influence Hamas, and that's kind of how they're operating it. So if we were to look at the puppet strings, Hamas's puppet strings are being commanded by Iran. Iran's puppet strings are most likely being operated by both Russia and China at the same time, considering that they're all kind of buddy-buddies with each other and kind of in an anti-American sphere. So going off of that, it is possible that from a very detached sense, the Russians are hoping that this situation will start to draw American attention away from Ukraine and into Israel. But so far, that doesn't really appear to be happening, to be quite honest. While we are moving carrier groups there, the carrier groups really weren't dedicated to Ukraine in the first place, so that's largely not really changing the situation with the war in Ukraine. We've also seen that the United States hasn't really dedicated at the moment any incredibly large monetary support to Israel either, and also, like we saw on this channel last night, it is getting a little bit of backlash because the Israelis, of course, have a very advanced and high-end military already that they've been upkeeping for decades. So going off of that, we probably will see that economic support to Ukraine probably won't fall off at any time in the future, even within this very short-term duration with what's going on in Israel. We probably will see, however, that actual physical U.S. assets, carrier groups, armed forces, things like that, will probably start to move into the Middle East en masse to prepare for whatever's going to be happening down there. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least from the big picture that we're seeing, Scott. And of course, thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running, and also being an old guard. You have been around for an incredibly long time, and we're once again appreciative to everyone who throws in support to this channel, because y'all make it possible. And so with that, we are on to the final one of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the news in Ukraine.
All right, and the next one is going to go to KCK, who puts in a $20 donation. And he does not leave a comment, but Casey, that is your first super chat of the stream. Huge shout out to you, and also thank you very much for supporting the channel, because you are helping to keep us reporting on the news. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support, KCK. And I just saw KCK say in the live chat, I've been hanging out here for a long while. Appreciate the Enforcers and the LSA. And hey, and thank you so much for appreciating the Lee Spring Army and us. It means a lot to us that folks do enjoy the channel, and it especially means a lot to us that folks like you, Casey, find the channel worthwhile to support, so that way we can keep this thing running. Of course, hitting the like button and watching the stream means a great deal to us, a massive deal. But also the folks who support the channel and help us to keep it running, y'all are the only way that we're able to do this as a job and support ourselves to be able to do this. And so I thank you so much, once again, for throwing in some support and helping us to keep this thing rolling, because you are now a part of what is helping us to stay on air. And so thank you so much once again for the kind words and the support, Casey, and thank you for supporting the channel for the first time as well. Long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And moving on from that, it is now time
and also, Enforcer, real quick, I want to say something real quick while we're still on the topic somewhat, while we're addressing one of those questions. Someone had mentioned the fact that the news outlets were all reporting that Israel had attacked the hospital, or at least in the parking lot or somewhere around it, and caused those casualties. I think one reason that may be happening is I'm noticing on Twitter a lot of OSINT accounts, which have covered the Israel conflict and also the Ukraine conflict very closely, and have simply reported on the facts. And now they're correcting their statements even and saying that it was actually a Palestinian rocket that hit the hospital. They're noticing large amounts of people unfollowing from their pages because they're reporting on the truth, because the pro-Hamas or pro-Palestinian folks and crowd don't want to hear the truth because they want to believe what they want to believe. I think that's probably the reason why the mainstream news is, hesitant to back off their statements, because it's just crazy. These days, people don't care about the facts, really. They just care about what they want to believe, and we're seeing that on Twitter even.
Oh, and I would certainly agree. That's one thing also that we have run into in the Ukraine war world on YouTube, is that sometimes we say, well, actually, this is not just sometimes, this is actually quite common. And it's something that y'all don't really see a lot here. This is something that usually happens on Twitter. We'll say something on Twitter as our assessment, and some people just want to wander up to us that are also in the Ukraine war community and not even say, I think I'd have to disagree on that, and then explain their statement. They just go, no, you're wrong, period. And then the next day we're proven right. And that's actually ironically happened multiple times over the course of the war. And it also makes me really scoff at people who act like they know everything and then they get proven wrong just literally tomorrow. Because it's like, why in the world act so definitive with your statement? It's just an opinion like ours. There's nothing correct about it right now until it actually happens. But that is something that we've seen a lot, is that people like to try and go out there and militantly push whatever they think the popular opinion is. And then when it's wrong, they usually have a hard time backing off of it. Usually because they're doing that in the first place to back up their viewers. On this channel, although we supported Israel, we were willing to give it a fair run for a while. Even still tonight, I was trying to give it a fair run and not really say who did it. But it's clear at this point, it was the Palestinians that did it, if anyone. And it was more so negligence on their end that led to it. But still, it's something that I find quite hilarious, that everyone just kind of went with that story and ran with it. And of course, on our channel, with our rule being picture and video evidence is a priority, and a must-have on almost everything, except for very few exceptions, like the Al-Assad attack, which has been heavily reported on and has been corroborated by the Department of Defense today. We wait for video evidence to go through and talk about what happened, and that's what we did with the hospital attack. And the video evidence was pretty compelling already to make it look like it was most likely a faulty Hamas rocket. And now we see that that's actually the story that's coming out. And that's also another thing I would like to remind all of y'all, is just because you hear something on the internet, it doesn't mean it's true. And that's something that's been said ever since the internet has been started. But I want to remind y'all of that. Just because someone has a title or is apparently well known in the community, I've got to be honest with y'all, that doesn't really mean much of anything to me. I know a lot of y'all don't like Henry Kissinger, and hell, he's been a war analyst for what, decades? He's been around since Vietnam. And he's still wrong on almost everything he says, from what we understand. So why in the world is that going to be different for anyone else? I believe more so on trying to follow the merits of what someone says, more so than their position or even time doing it. Because, in being entirely honest, I'm sure y'all all know this. There's that guy who's at your job, who's been working at that place for like 30 years, and the guy is still as bad off as someone who's only been there for maybe a year. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's incompetent, lackluster. There's people like that in every single field. And there's people like that that also do news and cover wars and things like that. No precedent, no nothing. They just pull opinions out of their rear end and then act like that's what everyone has to go with. We try and not do that here. We try and do picture and video evidence, and we also try and pull some kind of historical precedent to back up what we're saying. But nevertheless, just want to remind y'all to stay vigilant. And don't even trust what we say. I mean, don't be rude about it if you don't trust it, because, you will get banned. We don't allow rude people to be here. But always make sure to just take things with a grain of salt until they're actually backed up, and then kind of build up the rapport and the credit for someone over time. You know, don't just believe anyone on face value because they say, oh, this guy's been around for 30 years. Yeah, he might be around for 30 years, but he might be a Kissinger. You know, who knows? But anyways, with that, I hope I addressed that fairly well, and we're now going to be moving on from the question segment and on into the rest of the Ukraine war news, starting off in the northeast of the country. And going off of the past 24 hours, and hopefully the map has updated for the past 24 hours, and let's see, and it has. Going over the past 24 hours of frontline movements in this area, we have seen practically nothing. But moving on into our clips, and starting off with our first one, we did get to see a drone hitting some Russian forces. Oh, and we're going to be muting that. But we see the drone coming on down into a pile of mines, hitting them, and then we can see the nuclear explosion that followed. Man, the Russians that felt that shockwave, they went, and then they went, what's wrong? I'm feeling a little winded. That's it. And we can see the mushroom cloud.
Oh, Bliat, my lungs have collapsed, Bliat. I can't breathe. Oh.
Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. Oh, man. Oh, but anyways, moving on from that, we're now going to be moving on to our next clip in the northeast, where we also got to see more Russian forces getting hit by the state border guards of Ukraine. And here's the clip. We see that they fired the Stugna, and we can see that it's going for a BMD, or a BMP. Oh, and they hit it. And it's on fire immediately.
Зараз побачив. А другий тікаємо до осколочно давай. Попали, що працюєте? Попали. Попали другу.
Man, this guy sounds like he's having like an out-of-world experience right now watching this, man. He's like, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Що працюєте? Попали.
Didn't get into it too much.
Мінус 2.
This guy just found out what he wants to do for the rest of his life.
Давай осколка.
Oh, we can see they found some more.
Oh.
Я бачу. Вони за дерева сховались. Yes!
Yeah, this guy is having too much fun doing this, but still, respect it and love to see that the Ukrainian border guards are getting their little bit of fun up there in the northern part of the border. Moving on out of the northeast and down into Bakhmut, we have seen that over the past 24 hours, the Ukrainians have not moved forward a single inch. Neither have the Russians. The front lines are largely stagnant in this area, but the Ukrainians are moving forward a little bit in the southern flank. It's just that it's nothing really to change the front lines about. But moving on into our northern flank news first, we did get to see an ATACMS SPG getting hit by an FPV drone. And we can hear the Flintstones music playing in trap remix form. Wilma! And we can see the drone coming on in towards the ATACMS. Oh no, dude, do you see the Russian? He was like, today's a fine day to walk around my SPG. Let me check out the threads. And then he goes, opa.
I think he saw it coming in. He was walking toward it anyway.
Yeah, he's a little stupid. I mean, you know, he's not the smartest out there. But we can see the SPG now a roaring flame. We can see that it stopped a Ural. The Ural's now stopped to see what's going on. And now there's nothing but a charred out crater where the SPG was, showing that it apparently had a critical detonation that destroyed the vehicle. Moving on from that, very nice to see that little SPG getting destroyed. We're now moving on down into the southern flank, where we also got to see some sleeping Russians getting bombarded, but the way they were sleeping was very special. They were sleeping in a Z shape. There's one of them, there's the second one, there's the third one. All three of them make the shape of a Z. How symbolic. And here comes the bomblet.
Z for sleepy.
Z for...
Oh.
That's it, but we can see that they are now permanently sleeping, and that Z will be a permanent scar on the land. At least until they're reported. But moving on from that, very interesting to see. We're now moving on to our next clip in the area, where we also got to see another drone attack on the area. This was done by the 3rd Assault Brigade in the southern flank. we're going to be muting that, but we see the drone flying in, hitting the Russian outpost, flinging some debris outside. And we can now see the Russian getting out and going, oh, my head, it hurts a little. Let me fall into the storage pipe, this drainage pipe. And we see another Russian coming in.
Look at that guy just sprinting.
Dude, this guy is going, Usain Bolt got nothing on me.
That guy is seriously booking it.
He is. And look at him, he's like, oh, let me try to figure out what to do. Oh, bled.
Oh, dang, man. He actually made a wise choice for once.
I think the other guy is, he's going on down the pipe, you know what I mean? Oh, wait a minute, actually, no, he came back out.
Got the Easy Bake Oven Turbo Express.
Dude, they're all coming out holding their heads like, oh my god, I got a terrible headache. Wow, there was a clown car of them in that thing. They're still coming out.
I guess they just got a little concussion, that's all.
Oh my lord! There was an endless amount of them inside of that thing. There were 5 of them. Now we see one of them doing the old Russian crawl. This is what they call in Russia the bar crawl, because they're so bad off they're literally crawling from bar to bar. But we can see them now trying to look into, like, some kind of a foxhole, it seems.
Are there any foxes in here, Bliet?
I'm hungry. Any foxes? And we can see him looking. It's a pile of trash, actually. It looks like he's bad luck. But we see him kind of running around a little bit now, getting up and kind of moving. I mean, he's not really moving it, but he's moving it. Oh! Well, he moved just in time, I guess. More debris comes flying out of the pipe. And he's gone. Probably never to return.
Man, the Ukrainians are out here making world-class track stars out of these Russians.
Dude, man, I'm telling you, a drone, FPV drone, will make any man a Usain Bolt in seconds. That's it. They said, oh, Bliet! And he just got the record. He got the gold medal. Wait, we're not even allowed in the Olympics. Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, give that back. Then they take it back from him. But anyways, moving on from that, and on out of the Bakhmut flank, well, the southern flank, because that's all we got from there, we're now moving into Avdiivka. Of course, the front lines here have not changed much, and I'll be showing you what the past 48 hours have looked like. They've looked like that. In fact, the Ukrainians have closed the distance up here in the northern flank from almost being at the rear end of this field inside of a tree line near this railroad track to now they've pretty much pushed up all the way through the field and are now probably engaging the Russian forces in this tree line right outside of Krasnoarivka. Beyond that, the Russians have not moved a single inch at Avdiivka. The offensive is dead. The Ukrainians are victorious in this battle. The Battle of Avdiivka was a decisive Ukrainian defensive victory, from what we can tell. Of course, the Russians will be continuing on smaller attacks throughout the next few days and weeks, but they're not going to culminate in any massive gains of ground, and we're probably seeing that the Russian army has stopped dead in its tracks right now. Moving on from that and into the clips we got from here today, we did get to see that 63 of the vehicles we saw destroyed last week were geo-confirmed into exact locations in this area. This little picture here actually has little pinpoints showing every single vehicle highlighted with a red square and where they were destroyed on the battlefield. It appears that a significant number of them that had moved on from the initial Russian front lines were actually destroyed right along this tree line right here, confirming that the Russians are still using the tree lines for the most part as their only way to move around once they cross the line of contact. So a fairly interesting little thing to notice right there. And hopefully the Ukrainian artillerists and also Ukrainian commanders are noticing this with the geolocations and start to prepare their defenses accordingly, just in case the Russians try something again here in the near future. Moving on from that little geolocation map and into our next bit of news, we also got to see the 110th destroying some more Russian tanks in the area. And we can see their cool little intro here. Every Ukrainian unit at this point has a cool intro. Yeah! And they just chop it right in two. Okay, we're going to mute that. The Scooby-Doo music is playing. We can see a Russian tank racing down one of the roads. This is most likely in the rear line area. And now we can see the Russian tank boining. And they do be cooking. Man, Gordon Ramsay would look at this and go, "It's pizza, man, come on." But with
this
that,
is t.me/rub pack.
man, and they do be rubbing that pack, that pack of Copenhagen.
Oh.
But moving on from that, we're now going to be moving on to the area of Novoselivka Druha, where we also got to see the Ukrainians launching some drone attacks onto some unfortunate Russians back here. Here's the clip. The drone's flying on in. It's pretty desolate back here. It's almost as desolate as the future of Russia. And we see a Russian man right there, blade, and the drone has selected him for the Squid Game. Oh. Well, he gets a free drag. And hey! It's a good day. It's a good day. Celebration. Celebration. Good day. Great day. Oh, man, I'm telling you. I get no respect around here. I gave the Ukrainians an invasion. They put a target on my back. Oh, man, I'm telling you. But anyways, moving on from that, because that joke made no sense whatsoever, we're now going to be moving on to the southern flank of Avdiivka, where we got to see a Russian drone watch one of those Ukrainian mine layers lay out some mines on a road. So keep in mind, this is a Russian drone. That's Wally, and Wally is pooping mines out of the back of itself. Watch.
Он над ним висит, скорее всего, это транслирует ему, блядь, сигнал.
It's screwing around trying to find the right place to plant the
Вот они,
mine.
мины, блядь, смотри, он поставил.
Не, это была.
Была?
We hear a Russian in the back with tuberculosis,
да, ТМ-ка
and we now
съезжает с
see
него.
the little
Заминировал.
vehicle laying out the mines.
Вон она, блядь. Вон ты.
Dude, the Russians are blown away. They're literally going, bleh! They're like, do we have to deal with this
Прям на
too?
колею, нахуй. Поставил на колею. Я так вот своего. Это точно тот, по-моему? Место щелкнет, что точно было. Да.
And with that, that's the end of the clip. But still, pretty interesting to see, and quite bizarre to watch the Russians realize how screwed they are. Moving on out of the Avdiivka area and on down towards Kurakove, we also got to see some Ukrainian soldiers loading up a peon so that we could get back into frontline action. Oh, we're going to be muting that. We can see they have their little loading truck. And we can see them grabbing the shell inside of its case and heaving it up onto the back of the truck. It's pretty damn heavy. And with that, that is the end of the clip right there. Very interesting to see. And also, nice to know that they're, of course, keeping up the logistics in the background. Moving on from that, and down into the Zaporizhia front, we also saw that near the area of Velika Novosilka, a Ukrainian crab was hitting Russian forces. And as the old saying goes, the Ukrainians were giving them crabs. Here's the clip. And they're also giving them some sick trap beats. When you see the crab rolling on out of the tree line, and we can see the crab lining up its gun, its big gun, and we can now see a fire. There goes the round.
They need to turn up the brightness on the camera a little bit. I can't hardly see anything.
Man, they sat there and put the vignette option on this thing up to 100%. Like, this is just dark. And now we can see the Russian forces further downrange that are now the recipients of the crabs.
Oh, they went dark.
Man, they did. Both figuratively and literally. The lens is so dark, it's really hard to even make out what's going on here. But 3 Russian vehicles were destroyed by the crab. SpongeBob, me boy. Man, wait, hang on, Matthew. Mr. Squidward, open the stang door. Make me. But anyways, when you see the Russians,
Where'd that come from?
oh, you know that meme, Matthew. You know that.
Yeah, but like where the joke fit in though?
You know, the crab. It's a crab SPG. They're giving them crabs. So, you know, Mr. Krabs.
It's Mr. Krabs. I see.
You see now. You see. You do see. You do see. But moving on from that and the village chain, we're now going to be moving a little bit behind the lines to the area of Mariupol, which you could easily get confused with Mariupol if you pronounce that just slightly wrong. But we did get to see some grads back here. We're taken out by some HIMARS.
La 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 la
La la la la la. Oh, he didn't finish it. But we can see the grads right there at the crossroads. And they're now on the move. But the HIMARS is dialing them in. Beep, boop, boop, beep, beep, beep. Hello, this is Papa John's. What can I do for you? Yes, I would like to order an airstrike, please. Say again? Yeah, I'd like to order an airstrike. Would you like that in 15 minutes? Yeah, less than 15. We have it on the way. And so we can see that Papa John is now bringing in his day of reckoning on these fools. And we can see that they pulled their grads side by side so that way they can go grab the unguided rockets and start loading them into the grads. And this is when disaster will strike. Ooh! Hot and ready in under 15 minutes. That's not even Papa John saying, that's Little Caesars, but it's going to work. And we can see the grads are popping off.
Little Julius Caesar, pizza, pizza.
Pizza, pizza. Watch out, Caesar! He's got a knife! But anyway, so you can see the grad ammo going up too.
Pizza. He's got a knife. Pizza, pizza.
man, when
you know that meme where he like ran up with a knife and the guy starts slowly going pizza, pizza, and he's like trying to stab the little Caesars guy.
Yeah, I remember that.
It was pretty good.
Man, it was pretty good. That was so awkward though, how you just did that. You sat there, you're like, you remember that? And I was like, yeah, and you went, it was pretty good.
I was reminiscent about it.
Oh, yeah. Oh my God. Oh, and also, by the way, it just went nuclear. The whole place is gone now. And I guess you're right, Robert. It is 2 for the price of 1, just like Little Caesars. And so that's the end of that clip, but beautiful to see. And love to know the HIMARS are being used to great efficiency still. Moving on from that into the area of Avdiivka, we also got to see a Russian Gyansen being hit today as well. We can see that thing backing up into its hole where it came from.
Kind of slow. He's not going to win like that.
Beep, beep, beep. Bring it on back, Terry. Put it in reverse, Terry. And then we can see it now going into the shadows, but one thing is for certain, the Ukrainians are about to put this thing in the shadow realm here very soon.
And another thing's for certain as well, it's definitely not French, or it'd be going much faster in reverse.
Man, the French really do rig up their tanks with like so many freaking reverse gears. The French tanks actually have, I think, almost as many reverse gears as they have forward gears. But that's actually pretty nice, though.
That's about right in practice and also on their tanks, too.
But like in practice, though, that is pretty nice because you can roll up over a hill, fire, and then put it in reverse so that way you're not seen. You know, you're not just sitting up there like a Russian tank with no reverse gears. But we can see the Gyansen.
Or if you're ready to run off from the front line like the French like to do.
Well, I mean, like you could, but anyways, moving on from that, great to see that Gyansen destroyed, and moving on into our next clip, and also the reason why, Matthew, I'm not like going into that joke much is because you know what's about to happen, Matthew. We're going to make just a lighthearted joke. Of course, we love the French, and we love France. It's a great country and everything, but someone is about to get personally offended over a French joke. Y'all wouldn't believe it, but we've actually had people who have like become blood enemies of this channel because we've made a simple, innocent joke about their country like we do with every other one of them. And they will go and be like, I hate him now forever. I swear if I see him in real life, I will kill him because he made a joke about my country. And it's like, dude, it's like it's a joke. It's just a prank, bro. Like, calm down.
Oh, yeah, no,
like,
I'm always trying to get the French going a little bit, though. Like, the French is like that, you know, the one rabid dog, like, your neighbor has at their house, and when you come over, they're like, you're like trying to trigger the dog, like, hey little fella, how you doing, Scruffy? And then you like poke it by accident, and he goes, like, hey, gotcha.
Until that thing bites your finger, and then you go, ah! then you smack the little. Anyways, moving on from that, we did get to see some Ukrainian soldiers in a trench that apparently they've just recently captured with some Bradley support. Sadly, I'll have to mute it because you can already hear that there's a song. It's a musical, of course. But we can see the Bradley here moving around behind the trench. We can see the Ukrainians moving through it. And the Bradley giving them a little bit of fire support. We can see another one back there, too. And I gotta say, those Bradleys look sweet.
I see that people like the triggered dog joke.
Oh, man.
That's kind of what I'm doing to the French right now. I will say though, they make really, really good desserts and stuff like that. Though the French are really good with the croissant.
Man, the French do be cooking that croissant. But anyways, moving on from that, great to see those Ukrainian soldiers in the trench. And moving on a little bit behind the lines, we also got to see a Ukrainian soldier posing with some giant pumpkins. Well, those aren't really giant pumpkins, but they're fairly big and really cool to see. Maybe they'll have pumpkins for Halloween. You know, they're really going to scare the Russians with those, man. I think they're going to see a glowing face in the distance, and the Russians have never seen a jack-o'-lantern before. They could go, the ghosts! Ghosts! And then they're going to get up and run from their positions. But moving on from that, maybe the Ukrainians should try that in all honesty. But moving on from the southern front and down towards Kherson, we also got a clip here showing that the Ukrainians were able to destroy an Orlan command post. Well, you see there a little Orlan command post and the launcher right there in plain view of the Ukrainian surveillance drones. This means bad things are coming. Well, you see them setting up an Orlan right here for flight. And little do they know, the Russian soldiers are about to join that Orlan in flight for just a few seconds. And we can see that the Ukrainian drone is just orbiting. The Russians completely unaware that they're being watched right now with this little launcher. And here comes the artillery. It's an airburst, peppering the entire area, taking out the Orlan, taking out the troops that were running the whole thing, and taking out the launcher as well. It was a good day in Ukraine. And look at that. 300. We all know what that number means. It's not the Spartans. It is the Russians gone. And we see that they brought up a Ford F-150 because it gets the job done. But sadly, this time it's not going to be getting any job done for them as they start dragging away some of the crew members because they're a little faint. Man, they're just dragging that guy's balls against the ground. Like, I mean, this man's going to be having some bad medical issues once he wakes up. But moving on from that, we're now going to be moving out of the Kherson region and into our next clip inside of Odessa, where we got to see some anti-aircraft fire being directed at some shaheds. This was apparently a few weeks ago, but we got the clip today. We hear the snap, crackle, and pop of air defense. Oh. Oh. Man, we got a little popper out there. It's like a jalapeno popper. It's probably a Gepard, actually. And we can see the rounds exploding, well, proximity fusing in the air. I haven't seen anything get shot down yet. We are losing on all fronts, says the bot. Bot gets banned. He really is losing on all fronts. But when you see the darkness of the night sky,
Christian Cruz said, "How can you see a Ford F-150 and not do Sam Elliott? A Ford F-150, built tough, you know, like a real truck, for a real man. Am I a real boy now, Papa?" Have you ever wanted to look at the darkness of a black screen and have someone tell you that you've forgotten an opportunity to talk like Sam Elliott? Well, then you, my friend, are in luck. Introducing the all-new Stare into Darkness and Don't See a Damn Thing video. We have seen not squat for the last half minute of this video, and I swear that's the way it's going to be for the rest of it. AMX-10 Speedy Bang Bang just returned and threw in a 20, and I gotta thank him for the support, and of course, we're gonna be getting to that super chat and many others here in a minute. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and I've gotta say, oh, get him! Get him, Matthew! Get him! Get out! Be gone.
Be gone! But anyways, moving on from that, nice to see the air defense active over Odessa. And with that, it is now time for us to move on from the news of the war in Ukraine And actually, funnily enough, this is crazy. It is literally right on time tonight to the city of Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 602 of the war. And so, without further ado, here is the speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, в Запоріжжі увесь день тривають рятувальні роботи на місці влучання російської ракети. Частина звичайного житлового будинку зруйнована, поверхи з 3 по 5 в одному з під'їздів. Станом на цей час відомо про загибель 5 людей, мої співчуття рідним та близьким. Ще 5 людей травмовані, їм надається необхідна допомога. Я вдячний усім, хто працює на місці та підтримує людей, ДСНС, медичні працівники, наша поліція, комунальні служби. Я дякую усім нашим воїнам, які завдають ударів окупанту і цим повертають Україні справедливість. Це фундамент існування нашої держави – знищувати ворога і цим захищати людей. Чим успішніше будуть наші воїни, чим більше руху вперед буде на фронті, чим більш принципові втрати нестимуть російські війська, тим швидше ми зможемо повернути безпеку усім нашим містам і селам. Кожній громаді від Сумщини до Запорізької області, від Оріхова до кожного іншого міста нашої держави. Сьогодні я провів важливі телефонні розмови з прем'єр-міністром Норвегії та з президентом Франції, зокрема про те, що відбувається на полі бою, про підтримку наших воїнів, про оборонну співпрацю, про роботу зернових коридорів в Чорному морі. Це важливо не лише для нашої держави, а для усього світу, для глобальної стабільності. Особлива увага, звичайно, посиленню ППО та наших далекобійних можливостей, нашої міцності на морі. Також обговорили з прем'єр-міністром Норвегії початок роботи щодо безпекових гарантій на основі відповідної декларації з Великою Сімкою. Запросив Норвегію взяти участь в наступній зустрічі щодо формули миру. З президентом Франції обговорили подальшу співпрацю на рівні ЄС і політичну роботу для відкриття переговорів щодо членства і макрофін для України. Запросив і Норвегію, і Францію взяти участь в нашому саміті щодо продовольчої безпеки та гуманітарної ініціативи «Зерно з України», який відбудеться наступного місяця. Важливо, що співпадають наші оцінки ситуації на Близькому Сході. Обговорив це і з Еммануелем, і з паном прем'єр-міністром Норвегії. Це принципова річ. Не допустити будь-якої подальшої ескалації на Близькому Сході та зберегти якомога більше життів. Всі сторони повинні дбати про цивільних людей, про жінок, про дітей, які опинились в зоні бойових дій та обстрілів. Це буде один із найгірших сценаріїв, якщо кількість жертв буде знов і знов збільшуватись, і треба не допустити такого сценарію. Провів зустріч з делегацією уряду Румунії. Сьогодні відбулось спільне засідання урядів наших держав. Це ще один вагомий крок до стратегічного партнерства між Україною та Румунією. Наша співпраця, наші формати взаємодії – це нова сила для усього регіону Чорного моря. Для безпеки, для економічного розвитку, для будівництва нової інфраструктури. І я вдячний нашим румунським партнерам за реальну змістовність спільної роботи. І ще з важливого за сьогодні. Я провів нараду з міністром оборони України. Він представив свою команду, свою програму, склад міністерства оновлено. Вже є і перші кроки для вирішення тих питань, про які говорили військові. Зменшувати бюрократію, спрощувати документообіг, всі процедури, вивільняти час командирів на бойову роботу замість паперової. Буде більше цифровізації та чіткості в постачання у війська. Має бути більше готовності і для зворотнього зв'язку з військовими та вирішення накопичених проблем. Я дякую усім в державній системі, хто працює заради інтересів України, щоб результат був щодня, кожен день більше сили для України. Слава усім, хто захищає нашу державу. Слава нашому міцному народу. Слава Україні!
And Heroes Slava.
And with that, that is the end of his speech. And that is the beginning of part 2 of the stream. I, of course, have to say, I thank you all for being here with us so far. Of course, make sure to stick with us here for about the next 40 minutes because it's going to be a pretty fun time. We get to talk to every single one of y'all about what's been going on around the world today, and it's been a lot of big things going on, that's for sure. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and the critters have been saying a lot since the last segment, so we have to cover our 2 polls. These damn critters, I'm telling you. The U.S. is expected to be asked to spend $60 billion on Ukrainian defense and $40 billion on Israel defense. And what are your thoughts about those numbers? 47% said that sounds fair to me. 34% said send more to Ukraine instead. 16% said that's too much to send in general. And 2% said send more to Israel instead. So it looks like the majority of you believe that sounds fair overall. So $60 billion to Ukraine and $40 billion to Israel. And obviously there is no guarantee that this $100 billion total package will be approved because right now there are some problems in the U.S. government at the moment that might hinder that a little bit. But they are able to get this passed eventually. I would say generally this is probably a pretty good deal. I would say though that overall, I'm not sure if $100 billion is maybe the best amount to send, maybe a little less than that, because like I said the other night, we need to, reserve a little for ourselves, and we're spending hundreds of billions every single day like it just, comes off of trees or something. Nothing wrong with helping out allies, but we should do it in, proportional amounts. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'd actually believe that we should send more support to Ukraine. Israel is pretty well off on its own. $20 billion as an annual spending budget is pretty damn high. I mean, if I look at anything that we have out there, like British military spending, let's take a look at that. Military spending. Yes, quite. How much do they spend on their military every single year? That's it. The British spend $46 billion a year on their national defense, just to put that into scale. And Britain is, I believe, the 5th largest economy in the world, the 5th largest country by GDP in the world. They spend $46 billion. The Israelis spend nearly $20 billion already a year. So sending $40 billion to them, it does kind of seem a little out of sorts. Unlike Ukraine, sending a large amount of support to Ukraine, it makes sense. They're going up against a fairly, well, at least the shadow of an incredibly large armed force inside of Russia. And of course, that requires a lot more financial support and aid to be able to fight against, especially from Ukraine's starting position. So I'd have to be honest, I think out of that $100 billion, if we had $100 billion to give, I would say something more along the lines of $70 or $80 billion should go to Ukraine, and maybe $20 or $30 billion should go to Israel. Because it's great to support Israel, I just don't think we should start to half and half it with them and Ukraine. Ukraine obviously needs to support far more than the Israelis do. The Israelis are already on a very good footing, especially with their armed forces. So with that, I hope that addresses that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the critters also weighed in on the second poll. It says Putin has ordered fighter jets with hypersonic missiles to patrol the Black Sea 24/7 now. And what are your thoughts? 63% said it's insignificant. 14% said I need more info. 15% said that's not good. And excuse me. And 7% said unsure. And with this one, y'all know that Putin's hypersonic missiles aren't really hypersonic. So, in other words, he just has jets out there with missiles. So, it sounds a little bit more serious than it actually is. But nonetheless, he has sent the jets out there. And me personally, I would say it's rather insignificant because unless Russia is ready to fire on a NATO aircraft of some sort, then it's really nothing going to come out of it. So, it's just Putin doing his regular saber rattling and making it look like he's actually fighting NATO, when in actuality, he's not. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it doesn't really mean that much to me either. We've seen these Kinzhal hypersonics get shot down so many times, I think we've even lost count. So I wouldn't even be scared of them. I don't even think that's a major concern. It's kind of just posturing, and it's not even good posturing at that, because we already know the capabilities of the Kinzhal is not what's advertised on the box. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And that is it. The critters weighed in 100%, and we're out of polls. So thank you all very much to all the critters for making the polls possible. And moving on to our Super Chat questions. Up first, we have a $20 donation from Is Pimp. And it's good to see once again Is Pimp, and thank you very much for that support. And they said, with F-16s very slowly getting to the Ukrainians, are they still missing anything for proper combined arms warfare? Maybe Apache helicopters, question mark. And how prolific are those in allied countries to be options for donations and other helicopters?
Very good question, Is Pimp. Largely, providing the F-16 will be giving the Ukrainians the ability to fight a combined arms war. It's really the last thing that they're missing. Helicopters don't really play that big of a role in the modern battlefield from what we can understand. And that's kind of been understood a little bit in aircraft doctrine, at least here in America, for decades at this point. That's why we've seen that some of the more modern iterations of American attack helicopters, like the Apache, and specifically the AH-64D, have this giant bulbous thing sitting on top of the helicopter's rotor blades. Oh, look, that one's actually from DCS World. But let me find y'all a real picture of one. Well, that actually is a real picture of one. But this giant thing up here on top of the helicopter's rotor blades is a longbow radar, and that's actually where the Apache longbow gets the second part of its name from, is from this little longbow air-to-surface radar. This thing is supposed to be able to pick up ground targets, and it does, and allow for the helicopter to fire from a hidden area where the radar is sticking up over the tree line, but most of the helicopter is hidden behind the tree line. Even now, that's somewhat of a questionable strategy because some surface-to-air missile systems supposedly might be able to shoot down the Apache even if it is hiding behind a tree line, but for a while we started to understand that ground air defenses have become potent enough that helicopters really can't be used the way they used to be used, or at least the way a lot of people think they would be used, where they're invisible line of sight of whatever they're firing at, and then they shoot some guided missiles at it. They can't really do that anymore, at least from how the doctrine has developed and how weapons have developed. So going off of that, Apaches probably are one of the least important things, in my opinion, that an Apache could, that Ukraine could receive. The F-16, on the other hand, is adding that final piece to the trifecta that actually gives the Ukrainians the ability to fight a combined arms war. They will be able, with the F-16, to conduct air-to-ground missions that the Apache largely is just, that's really the only thing it can do is air-to-ground missions. The F-16 will be able to do it instead. The F-16 can also conduct seed missions to destroy radar installations far behind the lines, a very important thing in achieving air supremacy and also allowing for sorties to go underway while taking minimal losses. They can also conduct air superiority missions. The F-16 can do a lot more than the Apache could, and all of the things that the F-16 would be doing would, of course, be in support of the ground forces, the tanks that we've already sent, the artillery we've sent, the air defenses that we've sent them as well. All of it will be working together to actually create a combined arms war for the Ukrainians, at least as far as Western equipment goes. So to answer that, I don't really think they would need an Apache to kind of finish out the entire combined arms warfare aspect. They're probably going to be achieving that with the F-16 alone. But if we did want to send them some Apaches, there are loads of countries that operate the Apache. Let me take this back off screen real quick, and let me go and get you all a list of every single country that uses the Apache. And the list ought to be endless, but let me go and check. And let's see here. So, here are the operators of the Apache. Egypt, Greece, India, Indonesia, Israel, Japan, Kuwait, Morocco, the Netherlands, Poland, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, or other aka the Republic of China, its official name, the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom, and also the US of A. Almost everyone in
Poland decided to lease a few of them. It looks like it at least about 8. What kind of lease deals do they have going on with these Apaches these days?
Man, dude, the Polish sit there said, we'll take 96 of them. And then we said, we'll throw in another 8 leased if you buy 96 of them. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. We were going to get them anyways. But here is an actual, well, this isn't even a proper map because Poland isn't even included, along with several other countries that have the Apache in service right now. But the amount of Apache operators is incredibly large, and especially out of the NATO members. NATO members would be Greece, let's see here, who else? Greece, the Netherlands, Poland, let's see here, the UK, and the US. And of course, the U.S. is the largest operator. We have 819 of them. And so I believe that we beat out almost everyone else combined in the number of Apaches that we have. But if we wanted to provide them, there are countries that can. The United States would probably be the number one go-to to give them to the Ukrainians, but I don't really think they're actually needed to kind of complete the combined arms warfare side of things. But with that, I hope that does answer that, at least in my opinion. And my opinion can, of course, be wrong, so take it with a grain of salt. But thank you so much once again for the support, Is Pimp, and helping this channel to keep on running and supporting us so that way we can keep this thing going. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, Is Pimp, who have been around forever and, of course, supported the channel multiple times, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing rolling. We're really the only channel on all of YouTube that I really know of that runs ad-free and sponsor-free in this category of war news that relies entirely on viewer support to keep running. It's actually pretty unique and pretty special that way, and we've kept it that way forever. Y'all make sure that we are able to run this show the exact way we have always run it. We don't have to start changing our presentation because a sponsor may not like something we say or do, or YouTube AdSense may not be happy with it either. We've never had to change the way we've run this show thanks to y'all's continued support in helping us to be able to do this as an actual job. And we are greatly appreciative to folks like you, Is Pimp, because not only do you throw in that support that helps this to be possible, but you throw in really good questions that we get to answer too. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that further well. And thank you to everyone who supports the channel and helps it to keep on rolling, because if it wasn't for you folks, this channel would not be possible. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat question is going to go to Duncan VR, longtime channel legend who puts in a $22 donation. And a huge shout out to you, Duncan, and thank you very much as usual. He says, the animal noises. He says, Bamuba. Kermit said, Guzalik, Valakin, crab and fox noises required by Matt. Baba, oink, quack. 1800, no respect. Ruff, ruff, dog critters, meow. Sam Elliott says, oh my. Ba woof, quack, meow. Oh man, I'm Baba, quack, meow. Oh man, I'm telling you. He said Matt like it. I don't know, I'm telling you.
Just sleep the lightning. That's my best Kermit at doing that. But thank you so much once again for supporting. Oh my, ba woof, quack, meow. Oh man, I'm ba quack, meow. And noise. Ant noise. Spam Matt like it. I don't know why in the world I read that like I was just learning how to read. But still, thank you so much for the support, Duncan VR, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because, of course, thank you so much once again. You've been around forever. You've helped this channel to keep on running. And if it wasn't for folks like you, Duncan VR, who threw in those traditional animal noises and the support, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing running. And so thank you so much once again, Duncan, for being here with us tonight. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
All right, and our next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, AMX10, for that support. He says, I'm glad to see that with the help of the Sea Baby drone, the Russian Navy is being destroyed by a country that doesn't even have a Navy. And that was a famous quote from the Enforcer on day 68, hour 1, 41 minutes. Dang, that is very specific.
AMX10 is about to say, he ate today a Whataburger chili hamburger. And I'm going to go, huh? He's like, how do you know? But thank you so much.
Chili hamburger is a classic from Whataburger.
Dude, that chili hamburger is actually pretty freaking good, man. I had that thing today. I was actually kind of shocked with how good it was. But moving on from our side note rabbit hole there, because we try and tone back rabbit holes so that way people don't freak out, you know, because that's actually a common thing. But I do have to say, it is quite nice to see that the Ukrainians are not just using the Sea Baby, big Sea Baby, but they're also using everything else in their arsenal to bring the maximum amount of damage and destruction to the Russian forces. I have to say, I think it's absolutely great. And I'm trying to think, I'm not really sure if I got that statement from someone else or if I was the first one to say it. I don't really know. I'm kind of on the fence on that one. We have actually said things on this channel, though, that have become fairly common statements around the internet. Like, we were actually the first people out there to say the word turret toss. That actually originated here on this channel, so if you ever hear that anywhere, it came from here, which is actually kind of cool that phrase has stuck around and lived very strongly in the Ukraine war world. I don't know if I was the one to coin that phrase, though. I think I may have gotten that one from somewhere else and just said it here. But still, thank you so much once again for the support, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. And I would take an assumption that I probably did say that on day 68, 1 hour and 41 minutes into the show. But thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that further well. And thank you, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, for being a longtime viewer of this channel and supporting us and helping us to keep this thing rolling. If it wasn't for folks like you, this channel would not be possible. And so thank you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $15 super chat from Margaret Hemsley, longtime channel viewer, and thank you very much, Margaret, for that support. And she says, at the moment, I'm rich, so I can pay the subs I owe you. Oh, joking. People, you don't need to pay anything to watch this channel. No members, no subs. And I love that disclaimer in there, Margaret. That is very nice. She says, if I gave you what I think you're worth, add 10. LCQ.
Oh, man, well, I thank you so much for the kind words, Margaret. And hey, Margaret, she paid it! And also, thank you so much once again for supporting the channel and helping us keep this thing rolling, Margaret. And also, it is true. We don't do anything that's tacky. We don't have memberships. We don't have channel members. We don't have anything like that. I've always been against heavily monetizing the channel, which is kind of funny because that's what a lot of people like to act like what we've done is heavily monetizing our channel. And it's always weird to me because the people who say it are always running all the ads that they can. They also have channel memberships. They have Patreons they plug. They have literally every single way you could ever monetize a channel monetized. And then we cut out everything and we only do super chats. And then those same people want to say we've heavily monetized our channel. I don't even get where in the world they're coming from because being on the rear end, Margaret, like I've actually seen what the stats would look like with certain amounts of views. And just to put it out there to y'all, a 12-minute to 15-minute long video that would get about 450 to 500,000 views is going to make approximately $1,500 if you run ads on it all the way. We've never actually had a video hit that, but when you do the math, you'll figure out that that's about the amount it would make. And so it's always weird to me when people say that we've heavily monetized something because it's like, well, that's a little odd because y'all have too. It's just that people don't get to see the amount you make because, you know, it's ads. So they don't see people throw in super chats. And we make a lot less than that on any given night. But that was always weird to me because it's like we go out of our way to monetize this thing as little as possible. The only way it's monetized is through super chats. And that entirely relies on viewer generosity, which can actually vary massively from night to night. You know, some people can just feel like they don't want to support one night, and it's an incredibly low night, although the viewership's incredibly high. Or it could be incredibly low viewership and the support's really high. It's really just kind of like up to the win and kind of up to chance. But that's the way I like running it, because I don't like the idea of having everything super monetized, because to me that seems like I'm saying, hey guys, look, check out today's killings. It's sponsored by Fitbit. You know, it's like, that just seems wrong to me, you know, to have people sponsoring or running ads on stuff like this. So with that, I thank you so much for the support, Margaret, and helping the channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to keep this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. And I gotta thank you so much for the kind words and the high praise as well, because if it wasn't for folks like you who found this channel worthwhile to support, we wouldn't be able to keep this thing going. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Junebug72, who puts in a $10 donation. And a big shout out to Junebug, who's a longtime channel viewer, and we do appreciate the support very much. And she says, one for the live chat, please, and have a good evening. And tonight, I'm in the ideal mindset. No more wars, and may all live in peace. And end up to this, may justice and love prevail, and good evening, and Slava Ukraine.
And good evening, and Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you, Junebug, old guards of the channel, who have helped this thing to keep rolling. And so thank you so much for that. And also, I'm largely of that mindset as well. I'm not into the idea of wars, but I'm also not into the idea of running away from wars, because I'm averse to them. That historically is a bad thing to do, and that's also why I'm saying with the Middle East, if things look like they're getting serious, get in there and nip it in the bud now, because if you allow the monster to grow, it's going to be a lot harder to deal with years down the road or months down the road. It's better to get in and deal with it quickly than to let it grow and become a huge problem. That was the issue in World War I. That was the issue in World War II. And I feel like we should have learned from that by this point that although we all don't like war, sometimes we have to engage in wars quickly. Because, of course, if we don't, that could prove to be a somewhat bad thing, especially later on down the road. But still, thank you so much for supporting. I
think at this point it's about time for Saturday night's all right for fighting around the world, because some people need to get put back down a little bit. They're getting a little too crazy on the West.
Man, I would agree. They are getting a little crazy. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, Junebug, and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, we will make sure to get one from the live chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And our live chat question goes to Margaret Hemsley, who says, how many ATACMS have Ukraine been given?
We don't really know. We actually didn't even know that the U.S. was sending ATACMS seriously until yesterday. It was kind of shrouded in secrecy a little bit. The U.S. said we were possibly sending ATACMS, and they said we're not. Then we kind of are. And then they showed up there, and then they ended up hitting an airfield at Berdyansk. So we don't even know how many they have. We hardly even knew that they were going to be there until yesterday. And so with that, I hope that does address that live chat somewhat well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again, Junebug72, for the support.
All right, and up next, we have a $10 super chat from Green Eyed Girl. And thank you very much for that support. She said, please give us the news sources you use for yourselves. My sources of record are really slow in their reporting. And Green Eyed Girl, we don't have any one source that we use to gather the news. The Enforcer has various, and typically I'll gather my news from Twitter, and also I'll try to double check it with mainstream sources of a more credible type, like Reuters, even though sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're all wrong, so I can't fault them for being wrong occasionally. They do correct it when they are wrong, typically. But I typically follow the places that we have on our Twitter page. If you go there and look under our following tab, you'll see who we typically follow to get the news from. But don't take any one source for gold. Always compare them all. But Enforcer, what say you?
My sources are usually video and picture evidence that we find on Reddit and Twitter. And we also try and find news sources from reputable people on Twitter as well. One of the folks that we actually talk to a good bit is Trent Talenko. Some of y'all may know him. He's on Twitter, has something like 180,000 Twitter followers. He's a really good OPSEC guy. Well, not OPSEC guy, but an OSINT guy. And we talk to him a good bit, and he helps us out with some of the information we have on air every once in a while. So that's one of our sources, specifically. But largely just try and pull from anywhere and everywhere where the information looks good, or it looks like it's adding into some kind of a frontline analysis. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you once again for support, Green Eyed Girl, and I hope that does answer the question. And we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 10 from Jason Carpenter, who says, Iran don't want this smoke, man. And Russia gets to see what a real weapon system looks like. And you're killing it, bro. You're killing it.
And thank you so much for saying we're killing it, Zachary, killing it. And also, thank you once again for helping the channel to keep on rolling. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing possible. And to answer your question, Matthew, oh, hang on.
Iran don't want this smoke. They don't want that smoke.
And also, I would say, yeah, they don't want the smoke, but they don't know that yet. They don't know that quite yet, because they haven't dealt with America on an actual level like that. But with that, I got to thank you so much.
Speaking of not wanting the smoke and stuff like that, just a fun fact: we actually had a West Side Blood come into the chat just a second ago and start repping the gang.
Man,
no joke, we just had them.
We're about to get caught up in a gang war. That's in here in a minute. But anyways, hey, we don't have any gang affiliations whatsoever. Just making that clear. We have absolutely none. But still, thank you so much once again for support, Jason Carpenter, and helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for saying, we're killing it, Jerry, killing it. Because we love to know that we're killing it, Jerry. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well. Thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Hoodoo, Texas, who puts in a $10 donation. And a big shout out to Hoodoo very much for that support. He says, as a dog crossed railroad tracks, singular dog, as dog, a train wheel nipped off the tip of tail. Dog angrily turned to bite. Another wheel Damn, lopped off its head. The moral: never lose your head over a little piece of tail. Man, that's different. That's a different story, I gotta admit.
Oh, man.
Let's see.
Oh, damn.
Wait a minute. As the dog crossed the railroad tracks, the train nipped off the tail. Man, this dog's kind of wild for real. He got hit by a train, turned around to bite the wheel, like that's chopped off his tail. This dog's a fighter.
Man, this dog is one of those West Side Bloods, man. It ain't playing no games. But I would say interesting statement, Hoodoo. Interesting one. We'll keep that in mind. I think that's supposed to be applying to the Iran situation. We'll keep that in the pocket. We'll keep it in the pocket. But thank you once again for support, Hoodoo, helping this channel to keep on running. You've been around for an incredibly long time on this channel, helping out with that Hoodoo. And I gotta thank you so much once again for support and helping us to keep this thing running. If it wasn't for folks like you, this wouldn't be possible. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to I'm a Bounce 1236, who puts in a 10 and says, will the USA send more troops to the Mediterranean Sea due to the new command ship?
I have a feeling that we probably will, although sending troops is something more so under the command of the Army. The command ship is there most likely to command the naval forces that we have in the area only. If we want to command more ground forces, we're probably going to send over a general who will then set up a headquarters on land. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. I thank you once again for support, but the command ship does show that there may be even further growth of naval actions and operations in the Eastern Mediterranean to the point that it requires a specifically built command ship to be able to operate all of it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you once again for support and helping the thing to keep on running.
And also, I was just reading back over Hoodoo's super chat to make sure we didn't miss anything. I think he said the moral was never lose your head over a little piece of tail, but I think the moral here that even Hoodoo missed was that you can't take the dog out of him, because this dog had it in him. You couldn't take it out of him. He had that dog in him.
Man, he got that dog in him. Man, I feel like that's one of those jokes that you would hear from that comedian guy. You know, the guy who has a mullet, Matthew, who's from Louisiana. I forgot his name.
Is that fella that like kind of has some mannerisms like I've got a little bit? What's his name? Is his name Theo Vaughn?
Yeah, it's Theo Vaughn. You know, he's sitting there saying, so anyways, I knew this guy in school, his name was Timmy, and he died when he ran his truck into an embankment. You know, he's always telling the stories like that. That reminded me, for some reason, that statement that Hoodoo made, it reminded me of Theo Vaughn.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, that guy's hilarious too. He's kind of wild a little bit, but he's funny.
Dude, he's really funny, man. I'm not gonna lie. And dude, I remember that one time. Let's see, what was one of the jokes? He was sitting there talking about, man, there used to be this tree out there in the woods, man, and someone, you know, have you heard that story before, where the car was like carved up a certain way?
I think so. I've heard the guy say a lot of stuff like this, shocking. So I'm not sure.
Man, dude, they guys got some. They're all, of course, like, you know, embellished stories, but they're still hilarious because you know they're embellished. He's just putting them out there like that. But still, love Theo Vaughn, great comedian.
Have you seen that episode with him and that strange rapper fella that's got like the colored hair and stuff like that? I think his name is Riff Raff or something like that. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that.
No, that's something else. Like, you gotta watch that to understand it.
I think I will, because I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea.
You just gotta see it to understand. I was about to try to describe it, but I'm not even going to attempt to do that. You just got to see it.
You know what? Yeah, I think we're just going to move on. And I'll check that out after the stream. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Historic Tasmanian, who used to be Tasman, I think, but they're Historic Tasmanian now, and they put in a 7. And it did not leave a comment, but thank you very much, Historic, for that support, and we do appreciate it very much. We also have a 7 from Juice2288, who says, good luck to all the U.S. and Allies forces that are in the messed up area, and ATACMS to Ukraine.
And thank you so much once again for the support, helping this channel to keep on running. And maybe Ukraine will get the A-10s. Maybe. Who knows? I mean, you know, I'm not ruling it out. They are getting retired, I believe. And so there's got to be someone that will take them out there somewhere. And maybe that someone will be Ukraine. And also, a huge respect and hope that all of the American soldiers in the Middle East stay safe, because it seems as though things are going to be ramping up over there very quickly, very soon. And so with that, thank you once again for the support. Hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Thomas Kruger, who puts in the 5. And thank you very much, Thomas, as well, for that support. He says, doesn't the Israel theater look perfect for the A-10 Warthog?
Yeah, I mean, well, no, not really, because if they used the 30mm gun in the Gaza Strip, I have a feeling that would be classified even before the first bullet hits the ground as a war crime, just from the population density there alone. I mean, it is a good plane, though. It's a neat one. But I don't know. I'd have to be honest with you, I don't know. So with that, thank you for the support. I'd honestly say no. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Jake, who says, how many times has Russia claimed that it did not rocket a concentration of civilian, and it was actually Ukraine, and then they downplayed the casualties?
Wait, I'm not understanding that one. Can you translate that one for me?
They said, basically, how many times has Russia shot at civilians with rockets? And, wait a minute, hold on. Let's see. Has Russia claimed that it did not? I think Jake might have had a typo in there somewhere, because it's a double negative. Like he canceled both of them out, actually. So I'm not really sure what that question means, but I'm not even really sure how to translate it. But Jake, if you'd like to send us a clarification in the live chat as to what that question was, we'll be sure to circle back to it. But thank you very much for that support. And up next, we have a 10-pound super chat from Butchie777. And thank you very much for that support. And it's 10 pounds. It's a heavy amount of support. They said, always love the show. LSA is the best community out there. And Shoigu!
Thank you,
Gerasimov.
Shoigu! And another prepassnably. And thank you so much once again for the support. Butchie777! Let's go! And also, thank you so much for loving the show. And also the LSA. The LSA is an amazing community. Probably some of the best people out there on the internet, by no doubt. And thank you so much for giving them a shout out and also enjoying the show. Enough to find it worthwhile to support. Of course, keeping the channel running and being able to pay the bills behind the scenes is something we're always focusing on. And thanks to y'all's support, we are able to do that and able to keep on doing everything we do, like going to law school, paying for gas, paying for car repairs, replacing tires because somehow a nail gets in the sidewall, which happened a couple of months ago, and I don't even know how. I have a feeling, aw, man, pull out the hammer, start tapping. But anyways, thank you so much.
You sound a little depressed. What's going on?
Aw, man, I'm just down in the dumps. Aw, man. But anyways.
Man, don't be sad. Get glad. Get trash bags.
Aw, man, I don't think I can ever get glad. Aw, man.
Oh man.
Well,
you know trash bags aren't for everyone.
The only way I could get glad is seeing the suffering and torture of someone I personally dislike. Aw, man.
Sounds like the Russians.
Yeah, it kind of does. But anyways, thank you. Getting back to Butchie777 Super Chat, thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And because, of course, if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to do this as a job. And we've got to thank everyone greatly who supports the channel, because once again, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for y'all. And so with that, I hope that does address that further well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Philip Fix's LSA, who puts in a 5 and says, them, this group of them, they said the moon landing was faked. That's what them said. Me, poofed. You still believe in the moon? Slav LSA. And hey, chat, what was your first day? Day 17 here. Ask a live chat, please. Now, if you were saying that, Philip Fix, is like if you were saying that list like by yourself, and you said that, it sounds like you already prepared for the joke to fall flat when you just jumped straight up to the next question, like really quick behind it. Like you said, the moon landing was faked. You still believe in the moon? They jumped to, hey, chat, what was your first day? Day 17.
Oh, man. Well, I think, first off, I thank you for the support, Philip Fixes. And by the way, damn well legend. I think you've been here since day 4 at least, if I remember correctly. You were an old guard before we even changed the standard of the old guard. And so thank you for being here for so long. And also, that is something I find pretty funny, is that nowadays it's actually getting pretty common for people to deny the moon landing happened. And I'm just saying, why? Why would we do that? I mean, why in the world would we fake the moon landing? Because, you know, in all honesty, some people are saying we did it to up the Soviets, but it didn't really do us any good. I mean, like, hell, if we were going to fake that, there were so many other things we could have faked before that to try and give us a little bit of prestige. I don't know, like first man in space, or the first one to conduct a spacewalk, or the first one to orbit the Earth, or really anything else that the Soviets beat us to first. Why didn't we fake any of those? Why in the world did we just go all the way to let's fake a moon landing? That seems a little bit weird to me, but you know, it is what it is.
All right, I don't know, man. Maybe taking a trip. I don't know. One of those trips off the the smoke, man. Puff puff.
Oh man, I gotta tell you.
Oh man,
My whole life revolves around weed. Oh man, I mean it's okay to have a hobby and everything, but weed, man. Oh man. But anyways, getting back to the super chat. Also, my first day would have been day 1. Oh, that would be my day. But what was y'all's day? When was it? For Philip Fixes, it was day 17. And I literally just told Philip Fixes a moment ago, he's been here for, I think, at least since day 4. And then he said day 17 in the super chat. That's how tired I am. I can't even remember the numbers. But how long have y'all been here? How long? I want to know. Give me an answer.
Oh.
Give me an answer, damn it.
That scared the hell out of me.
That's it. But we will make sure to get a live chat as well, Philip Fixes. And thank you so much for being here with us tonight and helping this thing to keep on running. And with that, what do we got, Matthew?
And we shall. And it goes to Brett Smashy, who says, how much do these 8 helicopters cost?
Well, that was so abrupt of an end. I can't even get behind. Like I didn't even know. Let's see here. I think a normal helicopter in my 17 cost
Costs a lot.
Oh man. 16 million just about for an MI-17.
Damn.
Oh man. So if it's 16 million, let's just go with they're all MI-17s for low end kind of price. 16.8 times 8. About $135 million of helicopters were lost at Berdyansk, going off of our estimate. Oh man. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again, Philip Fixes, for sponsoring the live chat. Because now we kind of have a rough number to go with monetarily for the minimum cost of the losses that were there. And so with that, hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one goes to Tech Phone, who puts in a 20. Thank you, Tech Phone, very much. They said great job.
Aw, man. I can't even do that, man, with a straight face. It's really hard to do it. But thank you so much, TechPhone, for appreciating the channel and supporting us to help us to keep this thing running and saying that we're doing a great job. It means a lot to us that folks do enjoy the work we do and also support us to help us to keep it going. Because if it wasn't for folks like y'all, it would not be possible. And so thank you, TechPhone, so much once again. You've also been around for an incredibly long time, like at least since the beginning of the war. And I gotta thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And so with that, we're gonna be moving on to the next one. And Barry Woodward said, "You guys trying to put us to sleep?" Oh man, we never. But anyways, moving on to the next one.
All right, and also real quick, I'm seeing a lot of people saying that they were either here before or after the day of Matt when I arrived. So I'm curious to see how many of y'all were here before the day of Matt. So when you see that reference in the poll, you know what it means. Before the day of Matt. Were you here before the day of Matt? And it's a yes or no question. Real simplistic. No need for too much reading. But anyways, moving on to our next one. We have a $10 super chat from Aussie UK. And thank you very much for that support. And it said, watch when free to do so. Thank you for all the works and reports. And we donate directly to Ukrainian sources, but here's a coffee at least.
Thank you so much once again for the support, Aussie UK, and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, it's perfectly fine. Donating directly to Ukrainian sources is A-OK in my book, as long as you trust them. Of course, we don't want to support some direct things. You know, even if they look trusty, you never know. Like, for example, James Vasquez was a very trusty person until everyone found out who he was and what he was doing. And then he turned out to be a non-trustworthy person. And while a lot of fundraisers out there, a lot of nonprofit groups and all that, they look good and I'm sure they're fine. I never want to run the chance of officially endorsing something as an LSA thing and then having everyone support it, and then it turns out like 2 or 3 years later, if it turns out that money never made it anywhere, because that would be pretty infuriating, and also a lot of y'all would believe that I have broken y'all's trust. So that's why we only run fundraisers through YouTube Give, because we know where the money's going. It's going directly to that nonprofit, and those nonprofits always have a long track record. But thank you so much for supporting a coffee, at least, Aussie Huke, because with your support and getting that coffee, we will be able to have a coffee tomorrow morning, because I have to get up at 5 in the morning again, and I only get 4 hours of sleep a day. And you know something, y'all? I was actually in law school today, bored to tears, and I was reading about the Suez Crisis, and I was reading about Adam Lee, and let me make sure I got that right. I think it is Adam Lee.
Man, bored to tears. Oh my God. Man, I've about had it with law school. I've about had it already during the first semester.
Let's see here. Wait a minute. Hang on. Hold up. Prime Minister during Suez Crisis. Who the hell was he? Anthony Eden. I was kind of close. But Anthony Eden. I was reading about Anthony Eden today, and they sat there and said that his judgment and decision-making processes were probably damaged a little bit because he had been on meth, and he was only getting 5 hours of sleep. And I sat there and looked at that, and I went, 5 hours of sleep? This man was lucky! We literally only get like 4 hours of sleep on most days of the week, except for maybe Saturday. And Saturday we try and sleep into like 8 to 10 hours. But even then, that's a stretch. And this weekend, that's not happening because we've got plans. But it's...
And I'll be honest, like, people, when they hear that we're doing YouTube, I think most people think we're just goofing off or something like that. They don't understand the work that goes into it. Because when you tell, like, just the average person, yeah, we do YouTube or something like that, the reaction is not like, it's not the normal reaction if you're working like a full-time job somewhere. Like, oh my goodness, like, that's tough. It's more like, oh, okay. It's like, they just don't understand. It's like, it's a legit job. It's like a full-time thing.
Man, especially for me, man, because, like, Matt can tell you, I sit here, come home, and I eat supper, take a shower, and then I sit down around, like, 6 or 5:30 and start working on this thing up until 9 o'clock. And that's all the prep, and it's actually a decent amount of effort, because we try and go through and geolocate all of the clips the best we can, try and put them in their general location. I try and go through and figure out what's going on where and how that's going to look on a frontline assessment, and then try and figure out where all the other clips are and what the big picture is. There's actually a lot that goes into putting this news together every single night. And then, you say, oh, I'm a YouTuber, and then people ask, like, it's a gaming channel, and you put, like, no effort into this stuff, and it's a lot of effort. And that's something that really does wear you down. And I've got to be honest with y'all. I'm just going to be completely frank with y'all. The good reason why a lot of the war summaries haven't been coming out recently is because we are both burned out. Like, we are firing on all cylinders right now, and we're running out of gas. And so it has been a lot. It's been a struggle to even keep these streams going lately, just from how exhausted we are on our end. But that's, that's what's been going on in the background. We have been absolutely worn out lately and getting almost no sleep. So that's been a big thing for us. But still, I thank you for the support and helping the channel to keep on running. I did not mean to use your super chat as the one where we start to talk about how exhausted we are. But hey, you did get us a coffee. So hopefully that will help us to not feel exhausted, but still be exhausted nonetheless. And so with that, thank you once again for support, Aussie Uke. I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, our poll. Were you here before the day of Matt? Somehow, 42% said they were, which is a very high amount. 43% now said that they were here before the day of Matt, and 57% said no. I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure if I buy that, because if 43% of y'all were here before me, that means you are almost like, what's the term, old-time channel legend? Or old guard. And for 43% to be old guard, that would be a ton. That would be thousands of you. So maybe some folks getting confused about what the day of Matt is, but that's when I showed up and happened to be saying some things here and there. But anyways, Enforcer, what you think?
I don't think nothing. I'm too tired to think. With that, we're on to the next.
Damn. All right. Oh man.
Aw, man.
Tired, are you? But anyways, moving on to our next one, we have a $5 super chat from CK Bold, who says, take a live chat question. And we will. And CK, that came just on time because we are fresh out of super chats and we're moving in to our live chat questions. So, up first, we have the Morse code decoders of the stream. Toxic Bananas, Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Tightlines LSO, Kevin J, and Rumpelstiltskin. They said, hi LSAers, tonight's Morse code cipher is, Russia warning America is like a runt, threatening a full-grown bison. It won't end well. Long live the LSA.
And thank you. Well, hang on. I'm so... That's the sound of money coming out of a slot machine because y'all just hit the jackpot and y'all got that dead on the nail. That is the message of the night, and I want y'all to go and see what happens when a runt goes up against a full-grown bison. It is gory. But anyways, y'all got it dead on the nail. Congratulations once again for getting that Morse code message correct on the 602nd day of the war, because that's actually pretty impressive. The track record has been great. And so with that, we are now moving on into the next one. But
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was about to say we have one more super chat. This one goes to Notorious GRG. And it's good to see you once again. And they put in a $10 super chat and said, I've been doing my donating on most Sundays, but something tells me that things may be about to get out of control. So while I have something, here's something. And please take a live chat question from the chat. And Notorious GRG, he's laying it down. He thinks it's about to get out of control. And I have to agree with that. This isn't fear-mongering this time. This is probably something coming up here, and it's just a matter of time. Maybe not as bad as we think, but something is certainly going to happen. But Enforcer, what say you before we get that question?
I would have to say, I think something is probably going to happen. Not really one to fearmonger or anything. You know, of course, we try and differentiate ourselves from mainstream news by and large, so we don't fearmonger much. I don't really think this is fearmongering. I think this is kind of looking like at an inevitable situation. This appears they'll become a conflict. And so, thank you for the support, helping the channel to keep on rolling. And also, thank you for donating to the Sunday fundraisers. That helps to save lives in Ukraine and also the one fundraiser we did in Israel. And I gotta thank you so much for backing them up, because it means a lot to us that this channel is able to have such a massive impact for folks in Ukraine and Israel. And so with that, thank you once again. I hope that does address that well. And let's get the next live chat.
All right, so grabbing a few live chat questions, we have that one from Jake, who says, how many times has Russia rocketed civilians, caused massive casualties, and then blamed Ukraine for it while trying to downplay the casualties?
Many times, probably more times than we can actually count, at least hundreds. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Andrew, who says, should Iranian drone manufacturing facilities be targeted?
I think they should, and I think that should be one of the first priority targets to hit. It is a vital war asset for the Iranians, and considering that that seems to be their go-to choice of weapon for both the Russians and the Iranians, hitting those factories would be a crippling blow to their abilities outside of their borders. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Havlin Tuff, who says, Enforcer Matt, how close do you think until the wholesale activation of the Guard and Reserve forces of the U.S. military is?
Probably going to be a little while out there. I think we're probably going to try and deal with the situation with the regular army, and then if things start to get a little bit strenuous, or it appears that the situation is starting to escalate, then we might see the mobilization of the Guard and the reserves. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. I have a feeling we're going to try and go into this with a minimal impact on the public and also the current situation with the armed forces. And if it starts to escalate where it clearly requires more manpower, then we'll start to mobilize. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ohio Battalion LSA, who says, do you think all this chaos and unrest will lead to someone using a WMD?
Maybe not. I mean, a situation like this has been unprecedented, at least as far as how it's flashing off like this. This actually would be, by most measures, the doomsday scenario during the Cold War. Not to throw that out there, but a war in Iran where the U.S. would get involved and then they were backed by the Soviet Union. That actually was the hypothetical scenario that the British used commonly through the 60s. Well, not really the 60s, but the late 70s and 80s to explain how a nuclear war would begin. It actually usually started with Iran being the flashpoint. So going off of that, I think the chances are there, but still somewhat low. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And Doug asked a question in the live chat and said, "If all hell breaks loose, would y'all volunteer?"
Oh yes.
And I'll be honest with you, Doug. We were actually talking about that just before the stream. I would have a strong urge to go volunteer for the military if something major broke out. Now, if it was something that remained isolated to that region, I probably wouldn't feel that way. But if it became something where it was clearly going to get out of control and out of hand, I would strongly consider volunteering. Even though we are in law school, I would consider putting that on hold or to the side to go volunteer because there's just some things that are more important, for example, than law school or, our careers and things like that. And I would say the existence of the country and defending it is definitely more important than that. And hopefully a lot of our peers will have the same mentality. I'm not sure if they do or not anymore, but that's what I would think. But Enforcer, what say you?
If all hell broke loose, I would volunteer. I believe that considering that I talk so greatly about the country in the nation and have a lot of hope for it and its future and the citizens that I live around, of course I would volunteer. I would try and see if they would take me. To be quite honest with y'all, the reason why I didn't go into the military, because that was actually the plan for a good while when I was growing up, was that I was going to go to officer, however the hell it was going to happen. I kind of forgot what the plan was because it was way back years ago that I had this plan. But I was going to go and try and become commissioned as an officer and then get into the artillery in the Army. That was the plan for a very long time until the end of 10th grade when I found out that I was actually leaning a little bit. When I stand up, my torso actually leans a little bit to the left. And we actually thought that was because one of my legs was a little shorter than the other. And then we went to a doctor, and I got an x-ray, and then it turned out that I had a pretty moderate but almost severe form of scoliosis. It's severe enough in its curvature that the Army told me that I would never probably be able to join. They said even with a waiver, it would most likely be not possible. So that honestly killed the whole idea right there. Another thing is that I'd actually been offered a... what the hell was it called? I'm trying to remember everything from like 5 or 6 years ago, but I was offered some kind of a scholarship to VMI to go there because I played bagpipes, still kind of do a little bit, not really, but I played bagpipes back in the day. The congresswoman for my district saw that, and then she sent something to my JROTC instructor. Was like, hey, he can get an academic scholarship or a merit scholarship to go to VMI. And then that, of course, went out the window once I found out I had scoliosis. So after that, then I went, okay, well, I'm going to go do what my dad does, go become an attorney and go to law school and all that. So that was kind of the plan originally, and then it didn't really work out. So that's also why I've learned so much about the military too, because I wanted to go that direction, and then it all came crashing down, and then I still had an interest in it. But yes, I would go and try and volunteer as long as they would take me. I would still try and volunteer. To be honest with y'all, I'd probably see if I could maybe try and get past them not noticing my scoliosis, because as long as I kind of
That's a crime, buddy boy. That's a crime. You're talking wild.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe just see if they see it or not, or if they think it's a problem or not. Who knows? But I would still try and join, even though they say I can't. I would see. But with that, hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on, I think, to the final question of the night, Matthew, if I'm correct.
Yes, we are. And also, someone asked which branch. I have no shame in it. I would go for Air Force first, no doubt about it. And since we do have bachelor's degrees, we'd be able to be officers then, hopefully. And the second option would probably be Army, but I would go for Air Force first. Enforcer, what's your top two?
The Army all the way. It would be the Army, or the Army. I can't really see another branch. It would just be the Army.
Huh?
What?
Okay, I guess so.
Matthew's like, huh? But well, if I had to pick a second branch, I certainly wouldn't be the Navy. I don't. No disrespect to anyone in the Navy. It's just that I have a fear of the sea, and it will not like. I'm not like someone who gets incredibly scared of like deep waters or anything. But I'm scared of if you're on a ship. For example, you're one of those people who end up stationed on a ship. and then it gets hit and it sinks, you know, that's usually a pretty bad spot to be in, regardless of how modern or advanced the ship was and everything else. I would hate that. That's actually one of my worst fears, is dying at sea. So I would avoid the Navy, just for that reason. Navy does have the best food, though, from what I've heard. But I would go for the Army or the Air Force would be my second pick. And DV said, be a man, Marines! And the Marines are pretty cool. It's just that the Marines always end up getting the toughest jobs. I mean, like, the Marines go through hell and back, and you got to respect them a lot for that. But at the same time, man, the Marines, they go through a whole bunch of horrendous stuff. Like, if you ever read their history, the U.S. government is always like, hey, look, there's an island out there in the middle of the Pacific. It's a fortress. Let's send the Marines to go take it. And then they send the Marines. It's like, oh no, it's like, I don't know. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well. And we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Sweet, who says, how close is Iran to having a conventional nuke, not intercontinental?
We have no idea. Everyone's kind of giving a smoke and mirror show on that, including the Iranians. Nobody really has a good idea of how many nuclear weapons, or if they have any nuclear weapons, if they're there. Nobody has a clue. So I would have to be honest with you, we have no idea how close they are to having a nuclear weapon, or if they have one. Everyone's just kind of taking guesswork. We think they're probably maybe a couple of years away from it. But at the same time, that estimate could be completely wrong. They could be months away from having a nuclear weapon. Or they may never have a nuclear weapon. We don't really know. But with that, I hate that you asked a tough question like that, because I don't really think anyone, except for some people very high up in the intelligence sphere in the U.S. government, would probably know that answer. But with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. At the peak tonight, there were 8,000 of y'all on here live, and there have been 40,000 of y'all who have watched this stream up until now. We have been entirely honored to know that every single one of y'all has watched this news tonight, and we hope that it was up to y'all's quality of what we have done every single day news reporting. If y'all have enjoyed, and it's your first time being here, make sure to subscribe. It helps this channel. Well, subscribing actually doesn't help out the channel, funnily enough. It really has no impact. But subscribing does make us happy, because it lets us know that y'all enjoy our news. And we run this stream 6 days a week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every day but Monday, covering the news of the war in Ukraine and also breaking news around the world like we covered tonight at the beginning of the stream. Also, make sure to hit that like button, because we got up to 2,600 likes tonight. Help us to bump it on up to 3,000. Do your part in the war effort here on the Lee Spring Army. And, of course, good night, good luck, stay safe, take care, Slava Ukraini. God bless Israel, God bless America, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you all for another great stream. And, oh, man, hit the like. Oh, good night.
Oh, man.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.